Chapter 1539. Inside the Great Desert Realm. This brat's strength is terrifying. Admit it, if we were to fight one-on-one, you, Jinyong Ji, might not be a match for him. The 7 super geniuses in the top 20 looked at each other solemnly. Let's team up. We'll fight later. Let's take down this brat's belongings first. It's a huge fortune in the firmament star field. Without a cultivation level above the 5th rotation saint, you can't take an 8th grade sacred artifact. However, if we could defeat Lin Shun and hand it over, it'll be different. This battle is worth the risk. It'll be over when he shows off. I don't think he could defeat us if we team up. If we team up, we can even fight someone on the Saint talent list, let alone Lin Shun. Team up? It's not that simple. Who can make the top 100 on the monster talent list team up? The moment before the fierce battle broke out, the geniuses in the top 200 of the genius leaderboard looked at each other. At least, most of them were willing to team up to deal with Lin Shun first. Benefits always came first. I want his 8th grade sacred artifact. Let's team up and kill this brat. He's so arrogant that he thinks he can change the history of the monster talent list. Overturn the monster talent list? Dream on. Boom, boom, boom. The entire Great Desert Realm shook violently under the power of nearly 1,000 super geniuses. These super geniuses were all geniuses who had expanded their acupoints by 2,000 times. Their foundations were terrifyingly strong. With their Saint Heart Realm, it was like 1,000 heaven-opening realm cultivators attacking together. Inside the Great Desert Realm, swords roared like dragons. For super geniuses pulled out their swords and slashed out. A snow-white sword ray shot out from the tip of their swords. One sword ray split into 100, and the 100 split into 10,000. The 4 super geniuses each attacked with their swords. The sword ray was like a huge wave that swept toward Lin Shun like a whirlpool. This attack was like a sign of an explosion. All the super geniuses aimed at Lin Shun. Their Saint acupoints shone brightly as they used their unique skills. They either teamed up, fought individually, or hid in the dark. Their movements were as fast as fire, ready to attack at any moment. Not good. Protect the venue first. Otherwise, this plane will be shattered by them and sent outside. If they continue fighting like this, the 4 major venues will be torn down by them. The 10 elders sitting on the high platform all stomped their feet, turned into holy light, and disappeared into the void. With a wave of his hands, the Saint energy turned into a silver-white spatial energy and stabilized the realm. This battle had already evolved to an unprecedented level. No one had expected that someone would challenge all the super geniuses on the Demon Genius list alone. The 4 major venues didn't have any corresponding battle planes prepared. 1-on-1 and 1,000-on-1 were on completely different levels. Seeing that the 2 sides were about to fight, the mighty figures in the void all took action and took away all the injured geniuses. When the mighty figures of the summit's organizers saw the injuries of these monsters, they couldn't help but tremble. An old man in a blue robe was floating in the void. He stared at Lin Shen's back, his pupils trembling. It can't be that mysterious, right? Every single one of the geniuses had their protective saint artifacts shattered. They were only severely injured and not killed. What did this mean? This meant that Lin Shen's control of his saint energy cultivation had reached an almost heaven-defying level. This was even more terrifying than massacring the geniuses on a large scale. A first rotation saint could use dozens of cultivation techniques and launch thousands of attacks in a single breath. However, it was impossible to maintain the power of each attack. There would be a certain amount of error in between. Even with the cultivation of these mighty figures and second rotation saints, they couldn't do what Lin Shen did and only severely injure the geniuses, but leave them alive. Such exquisite control of the saint power was something that they could only look on in the dust. One had to know that every monster had a completely different level of defense. To only injure and cripple them without taking their lives, how terrifying was his control of power? Genius, a true genius. His cultivation is definitely not as simple as opening a saint acupoint. Could it be that he opened a saint acupoint in his brain in advance, and his control of saint energy has reached our level? These mighty figures of the heaven opening stage and above were all in an uproar. On the plain, a sandstorm raged in the desert, and the attacks that filled the sky shattered the plain. The sky and earth spun, and the space within thousands of miles around Linshun was shattered into a vacuum. Clang! In the blink of an eye, there was a dragon's roar, and a sharp aura that split the 9 heavens and divided the continental plates. Lin Shin stepped into the air, and a torrential aura swept up. He held a dark red battle saber in his hand. The blade looked like it had been bathed in blood, and there were 9 bloody lines on the blade's spine. The blood-red dragon light on the hilt blinked slightly, and flames burst forth, burning the heavens and destroying everything in its path. Lin Shun held the saber alone, and his aura towered over the heavens and earth. There was a domineering aura between his brows that looked down on the world. 8th grade saber artifact, absolute flame. The moment Lin Shun held the saber, the yellow sand in the entire desert plain ignited with torrential flames. The high temperature filled the entire desert plain, and the blood-red flames burned the sky. The fellows on the monster ranking have always been high and mighty. Now, it's time for someone to shatter your arrogance. Lin Shun sneered coldly. The 44 hexagonal saint acupoints on his body glowed brightly. Saint energy billowed like rivers, the sun, and the moon, converging on the edge of his saber. Lin Shun abruptly drew his saber and slashed towards the heavens. God's tear. Rip! The tip of the saber swept out, and a snow-white saber aura burned with faint crimson flames, spinning like a spiral. The pupils of the many rank, 8 mighty figures shrank. This saber was flawless, and it was already close to perfection. Its realm was far beyond the heaven-opening stage. However, it might not be enough to take on the attacks of all the monsters. Bang! At the critical moment, the saber aura suddenly exploded. The saber aura exploded, turning into countless saber chi fragments that filled the sky. It was as if the vast desert was innumerable. Every saber chi fragment was as beautiful as broken jade, crystal clear, and as beautiful as a withered flower blooming. This change caused the pupils of all the monsters to shrink. The saber chi fragments fiercely shot toward the attacks of all the monsters, crushing them like a violent storm. Every shard of saber chi accurately hit each of the super genius's attacks. Chi! Bang! 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 When the boundless fragments of saber chi collided with the monster's attacks, the sound of explosions filled the sky and tore the desert dimension apart. Heaven and earth were overturned. The saber chi fragments were like snowflakes, scattering in all directions. All the heaven-opening stage saints in the 4 major venues were trembling. Only their cultivation could clearly see that the saber chi fragments had penetrated all the monsters' attacks, and a large number of super monsters had been struck down. When the terrifying energy dissipated, the 4 major venues were greeted by a deathly silence. A silver robe appeared in the void, and saint power flowed, turning into a faint golden light that condensed into a golden jade robe. Lin Shun floated with his saber, surrounded by the bodies of the super monsters. They were either lying on the ground or floating in the void, unconscious. Their bodies were covered in blood, and their flesh was torn apart. They were covered in injuries. One saber strike had killed 800 super monsters of the Saint Heart realm. Lin Chen's gaze shifted. Within the shattered grand desert existential plane, only the top 200 monstrous geniuses were left. The last line of defense was left on the monster ranking. Chapter 1540. The expressions of the rank. 8 experts in the 4 venues were unprecedentedly solemn. This Lin Shun was very likely to have the strength close to the talent saint ranking. What is this kid's cultivation level? He's definitely in the heaven-opening realm. Moreover, he's in the talent saint ranking. If he's not in the heaven-opening realm, I'll do a handstand. Every super genius in the Saint Heart realm can unleash about 1 quadrillion dragon power, which is equivalent to 1,000 venerables. These super geniuses have even defeated a peak Saint Demon King. Even an ordinary early-stage heaven-opening realm cultivator with 81 saint points would find it difficult to defeat these super geniuses in a one-on-one battle. The saints were in an uproar as they communicated via voice transmission, becoming more and more terrified. What did it mean to be able to defeat these super geniuses with a single move? It was very likely that this person was already half a step into the saint talent ranking. In the Great Desert Realm, Lin Shen looked at the Jian in his palm with interest. The power of a rank 8 saber weapon was beyond his expectations. The difference between a rank 7 and a rank 8 sacred artifact is at least 5 times. It's really powerful. Moreover, my absolute blaze has been strengthened by the system. It can almost be called the strongest rank 8 sacred artifact. Lin Shan was able to force back these super geniuses with a single move. Other than his cultivation technique, mental cultivation technique, and cultivation level, a large part of it was the power of this rank 8 sacred artifact. The difference between a rank 8 and a rank 7 was like heaven and earth. The legendary rank 9 sacred artifact was probably even more heaven-defying. At this moment, Lin Shan was not in a hurry to collect a large number of attribute light balls. Instead, he suddenly laughed. Only you guys can barely be considered my opponents on the Talent Saint ranking. How about it, everyone? If you admit defeat and surrender now, everyone will be happy. I can't be as gentle as before when dealing with you guys. All the geniuses in the top 200 understood what he meant. What he meant was that he, Lin Shan, would no longer only injure and defeat the demon-level geniuses without taking their lives. As for the reason why Lin Shan had activated the Golden Jade Garment, it was because within his God's tier, only the attacks of these 200 people had managed to penetrate the Blade Chi fragments released by his God's tier. The people in the top 200 of the monster ranking were all ridiculously powerful, close to the middle stage or even the late stage of the heaven-opening realm. Lin Shan couldn't defeat all of them one-on-one without taking their lives. His original intention was to take the first place on the genius list as soon as possible, not to wash the genius list with blood. Washing the genius list with blood would cause some trouble for his next operation. You may think that you're number 1 in the world, but I don't think you're that arrogant. At this moment, Jinyang Ji, who was ranked 2nd on the Demon Genius list, stepped forward and pulled out the holy sword on his back. The scarlet mist cracked inch by inch, and the sword seemed to fill the sky with scarlet mist. If I let you fight one-on-one, you might really become number 1 on the Monster Genius ranking. Lin Shan, you are very strong, but your biggest mistake was to challenge us. The various peerless monsters all acknowledged Lin Shan's strength. However, this ignited their fighting spirit even more. Close to 200 monstrous geniuses surrounded Lin Shan, each of them holding a 7th-grade saint artifact. Their might was like the sun in the sky, and holy clouds gathered. From afar, it was like a group of stars surrounding a bright moon. Since there's nothing to say, then let's fight. I like to talk with my fists. Rumble. Lin Shan's shoulders shook, and he casually pulled out a peerless saber aura that spanned across the sky. Immediately, more than a dozen peerless monsters among the top 100 sword sages stepped forward and slashed with their sabers. Saber energy swept across like a long river and broke Lin Shan's attack. Rip! 12 peerless monsters with superb movement techniques appeared around Lin Shan like phantoms. They either pointed with their fingers, waved their fists, and slashed with their swords, or formed hand seals and suddenly patted the ground. The desert turned upside down, and the stars moved. Beams of sacred power shot toward Lin Shan like a meteor shower. Unparalleled heavenly dragon. Another peerless monster struck with a peerless palm technique. The sacred dragon transformed into a dragon. 1,000,000 feet in the sky, dragons danced wildly and fell on Lin Shan's head. Death Sword Dao, don't rest until death. The reincarnation sword sage, won the top 10 on the monster ranking, slashed diagonally with his sword. A surging sword aura surged with the aura of death, slashing open the desert and dividing heaven and earth. The beautiful moon fairy, ranked 5th on the monster ranking and one of the top 10 peerless beauties on the monster ranking, floated in the air. Her colorful dress fluttered, and a solar eclipse avatar appeared around her. She held a sacred bow with moonlight swirling around it. With a pull of her hand, she shot out a shocking arrow. Solar eclipse, sky-covering arrow. The arrow flashed, and it was aimed straight at Lin Shun. All the monstrous geniuses launched their attacks almost at the same time. Even a peak stage heaven opening mighty figure would die on the spot if surrounded, let alone a late stage heaven opening realm cultivator. Without the reaction speed of a first-rank sage, it was impossible to survive. Lin Shun held his saber with one hand and slashed at the sky with God's Tear. Saber chi spun and exploded into countless saber chi fragments, shattering countless attacks. Following that, 8 mental burning dragons appeared and roared at the sky. The sound waves shattered many mental attacks that attempted to sneak attack him. With a swipe of his palm, Lin Shun held rushing thunder in his hand. With a single thought, the rhino spirit flying knife moved according to its master's will. With a swing of his hand, a lotus flower of knife shadows blotted out the sky above Lin Chen's head, slashing out layer after layer. Lin Chen's attack also erupted in an instant. His reaction speed was so fast that even second-rank sages could not help but narrow their eyes. Chi! Bang! 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 Rumble! Mountains and rivers reversed, and heaven and earth cracked. In the desert plain, several second-rank sages strengthened the plane's spatial power. The battle dazzled the eyes. It was too majestic. The top 200 monstrous geniuses on the Demon Genius list attacked together. This scene was like returning to the great battle of the immemorial era. What was more terrifying was that Lin Shun actually received most of the attacks head-on. Rip! Lin Shun held his saber with one hand and spread his 9 heavenly demon wings, leaving behind countless afterimages. He was wearing a golden jade robe and was unharmed. A group of monstrous geniuses who were good at movement techniques immediately blocked him and used their ultimate techniques. Lin Shun used his saber techniques, flying sabers, and the most barbaric fist techniques to attack. Super chaotic techniques were used one after another, catching all the monstrous geniuses off guard. Swoosh! Bang! 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 Lin Shun and the monstrous geniuses fought from the sky to the ground. Everywhere they passed, everything was destroyed and turned into a vacuum. Along the way, there were monstrous geniuses who were defeated by Lin Shun and were forced to retreat. They were heavily injured and vomited blood on the spot. Lin Shun did not completely block the monstrous geniuses' attacks. Out of 100 monstrous geniuses' attacks, at least 10 of them hit him. But he was unharmed, and the monstrous geniuses almost vomited blood. Clang! Lin Shun was as fast as lightning and broke a monstrous genius's holy artifact with one slash. The other party was also a fierce character. He did not care about the broken 7th grade holy artifact and used his holy power to activate a mid-orange tier cultivation technique. He punched Lin Chen's chest and went straight for his sane heart. Chi! Bang! Halfway through his attack, he realized that he could not penetrate Lin Chen's golden jade robe. Instead, he was sent flying by Lin Chen's slap. He felt dizzy and fell into the desert like a meteor. He vomited blood and was completely dumbfounded. Damn it, why is he so tough? Chapter 1541. His defensive technique is too strong. It's not like a sacred artifact, but it's stronger than a sacred artifact. We can't break his defense with our attacks alone. If he wanted to kill us, we would already be dead. That's not how you fight. He's the only one who can hit us, but we can't hurt him. That's too shameless. Once the battle started, the monsters complained incessantly. Lin Chen's defense was too freakish. Unless everyone's attacks were concentrated on one point, it was impossible to break through his defense. Lin Shun held a saber in one hand and a flying dagger in the other. It was as if he was invincible, and many monsters were forced to retreat. It was a complete turnaround under Lin Chen's unstoppable attacks. Even the top 50 monsters on the monster ranking could not last more than a few rounds. Who the hell can stop this monster? He was as hard as a ghost. His Saint Chi was strong enough to crush ordinary heaven-opening realm cultivators, and he was still fighting with his life on the line against these monsters. Even a grade 7 Saint artifact would not be able to block a single strike from him, and would be severely damaged or even destroyed on the spot. All the sages were dumbfounded. Originally, they had thought that this would be an explosive and evenly matched battle, but they did not expect it to be a one-sided battle. The monsters could not even break through Lin Chen's defense. He took most of the attacks head-on, blocked some of them, and used his super fast movement technique to crush the monsters. One had to know that Lin Chen's total acupoint expansion was 31,000 times, and his current total acupoint condensation was 10,000 times. On top of that, he was supported by the Tai Sky concealing technique and supreme God possession talent. The quality of his sacred power was so high that it could explode with 27,970 venerables power. When this sacred power was converted into defense, it could be said that there was no blind spot. However, Lin Chen's intermediate orange defensive technique, the Golden J Garment, was F*King strengthened by 15, increasing the technique's power by 410%. What was even more terrifying was that the supreme God possession talent's effect was 710%, with sacred power equivalent to 28,000 venerables power. He could release an intermediate orange defensive technique that increased its power by more than 7 times. It would be a miracle if they could hit him. The sects, families, and sages in the 4 venues were completely dumbfounded. The peerless monsters that they were so proud of were actually being beaten by Lin Chun. Is this the joint battle between the top 200 on the monster rankings? F*CK. Even novels don't dare to write like this. It's too fake. Shameful, too shameful. This old man can't stand it anymore. It's not that these monsters are too weak, but that Lin Chun is too ridiculously strong. The mouths of countless sages twitched violently. This was a few eras away from the evenly match that they had expected. The entire battle could only be summarized in one sentence: beating up little kids. Lin Chen practically ignored the freaks' attacks and chased after them to beat them up. Whoever he chased after was unlucky. If this wasn't beating up a child, then what was? Whomever it touched would be hammered. F*CK. He's coming. What are you doing? No, I don't want to see this big and thick holy blade. Master Lin Chun, I admit defeat. I'm an ally. Don't use your blade. F*CK. I'll fight you. My holy weapon. No, brother, I was wrong. Many of the freaks were extremely unyielding just a moment ago, but after Lin Chun destroyed many of their trump cards, they were completely shocked. Clang! At that moment, the sound of a sword soared into the sky. Jinyang Ji, who ranked second on the monster rankings, was holding a golden holy sword. Golden light surged as he struck, and a golden path appeared in the sky, turning into a golden road. At the end of the path, a sharp light shot over, and it was the tip of his sword that shone the brightest. Chi! Lin Chun slashed with his blade, splitting the golden sword aura. However, he was forced to take 3 steps back for the first time. Oh! Lin Chun was interested, and the smile on his face grew wider. The morale of the freaks soared. The top 30 powerhouses on the Demon Genius list had begun to use their trump cards. If they could not break through Lin Chen's defenses, they would not be able to fight this battle. I bought enough time. If I can't even take down Lin Chun with this move, I can only admit defeat. I didn't expect to use the trump card that I've been accumulating for 10,000 years here. If it's a one-on-one battle, Lin Chun deserves to be ranked first on the monster rankings. However, if you want to fight a group battle, he's dreaming. Rumble. Boundless power once again filled the entire desert plain. The eyes of the various aristocratic families, sects, and old monsters were burning with passion. It's here. It's finally here. The ultimate trump card of the top 30 on the monster rankings. They did not expect to be lucky enough to see it together today. It was a historic moment. It was obvious that they could not take down Lin Shun in the previous battle of attrition. They finally changed their battle strategy. In the Great Desert Plain, Xiao Changsheng, ranked 12th on the monster rankings, Thousand Flames Incinerate the Sky, stepped on a wave of fire. The fire pagoda in his palm released a boundless black, 3 lively fire that burned the entire desert plain. Even a sacred heart would be burned to ashes if touched by the fire. Lien Beirong, the Undying Saint, ranked 9th on the monster rankings, carefully refined 10 sky-splitting sacred corpse puppets. Xiang Kue, ranked 7th on the monster rankings, wielded the 8th grade sacred sword, 9 Demons Life-Death Sword. Jing Filan, ranked 11th on the monster rankings, used the advanced orange tier technique, Sacred Heart Incantation. She turned into an undying fire phoenix and appeared again. The 8th grade Demon Saber, Heartbreak Red, was now in the hands of Long Qianyue, who ranked 3rd on the Demon Genius list. Moon Fairy Min Anren, who was ranked 5th on the Monster Genius ranking, cast the advanced orange tier cultivation technique, Myriad Moon Sky Piercing. Thousands of moons rose around her slender body. They were as brilliant as the world. Every ray of moonlight seemed to have the power to move mountains and fill seas. It had the power to shatter heaven and earth. Countless anomalies could be said to have enveloped the entire barren existential plane, all of them surrounding Lin Shun in the center. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. Countless powerful figures looked hopeful. It was as if they had seen the moment when they surrounded the Demon Lord. As for Lin Shun, he was like the Devil Lord that they were besieging. He had shaken the entire group with his own strength. The 29 most powerful legendary figures on the monster rankings had finally used their full strength. They no longer hid anything. Originally, they had planned to use their ultimate trump cards to compete for the first place on the monster rankings. They had used all their trump cards that could suppress a sky-splitting middle stage or even a sky-splitting late stage. Interesting. After this wave, my attributes will skyrocket once more. That a grade 8 sacred artifact. If I smash it to smithereens, I'm afraid I'll lose a lot of attributes. Lin Shin licked his lips and raised his eyebrows. These guys had finally taken the bait. Lin Shin did not use his saber. He used his 8th grade sacred sword, Sky Freezing Sword. A chilly aura spread for thousands of miles. Icy mist lingered in the sky. Lin Shun raised his sword, looking like the reincarnation of a sword saint, extraordinary and refined. All the sages stood up. They held their breaths and stared at the scene. The madam of the Yi family, Yi Lishua, swayed her slender waist and slowly got up. She strode forward with her slender legs and quietly watched Lin Chen's back at the closest distance. She wanted to see with her own eyes how the young man that her daughter had chosen would lead the history of the monster rankings. Would it be Lin Chun who defied the heavens and swept through the Demon Genius list, or would the Saint Geniuses defeat Lin Chun? Or rather, both sides would suffer great losses. This unprecedented battle on the monster rankings would be decided in the next moment. Chapter 1542. Rumble. The first to attack was from the monster ranking. Furthermore, it was Jinyang Ji, who was ranked the highest. 4 phases: Sky Severing Sword, Life Severing, Death Severing, Time Severing, Space Severing. Jinyang Ji had been brewing for a long time, and his killing intense sword. He attacked again, and 4 swords sealed off Lin Chen's position. The tip of the sword shot out 4 rays of sword light that were as dazzling as the sun. They almost jumped through the void, and there was a hint of time and space stagnated. They even transcended life and death as they slashed at Lin Chun. Heaven-splitting puppets explode. The Undying Saint made a hand seal, and the 10 heaven-splitting puppets flashed in Lin Chen's direction. They shone brightly and wanted to self-destruct. They didn't want to waste time fighting. 3 lives fire burning the 9 heavens. The fire tower spun, and Xiao Chongqing's black flames turned into a black dragon that charged at Lin Shun. Thunder God summon. Wielding an 8th-grade holy sword, Xia Inkue slashed out a 1,000-mu-large Thunder God phantom. The 3-headed, 8-legged Thunder God held many magical weapons in its hands as it charged towards Lin Shun. Moon on the sea. The moon fairy pointed out with a finger, and 10,000 moons descended, pressing down on Lin Shun. The space of the entire plain was completely crushed, and Lin Shun was suppressed. The earth and sky tilted, and the desert plain began to shatter, ushering in the end before the silence. The ultimate killing move of 29 peerless monsters was enough to make all the heaven-splitting cultivators outside the Saint Talent ranking feel fear from the bottom of their hearts. Facing the collective attack of the monsters, Lin Shen's lips curled up slightly. His saint power was as vast as the sea, as if the energy of 1,000 planes had condensed on his sword. Starlight flashed continuously like a dead star from billions of years ago, blooming with the most dazzling light. Terrifying spiritual pressure rolled over, turning into a burning spiritual dragon that danced wildly in the sky. At that moment, Lin Shen's left hand was burning the sky, and his right hand was swinging the sword. Lin Shen suddenly raised his sword towards the sky, slashing diagonally. A palm across the sky burned all life. Billion starlight, 9 layers burning sky palm. Lotus dance, 8 sections burning dragon, celestial roar. Wind demon falling, sacred finger. Bang, bang, bang. Lin Shun unleashed all of his skills, one peerless orange tier technique after another, bursting forth with unprecedented speed. The attacks from all directions were all blocked by him. The dragon roared and the saber flashed. Billions of starlight converged into a sword, slashing apart the 4 brilliant sword lights. Sword chi overflowed, and Jinyang Ji vomited blood on the spot. His face was filled with horror. With a single slash of starlight, the 10 puppets were destroyed, and the sharp edge of the cold air destroyed the heavy attacks of the 3 lively fire. The finger of the wind demon was so fast that it pierced through 10,000 bright moons. The heavenly roar of the burning dragon shattered mountains and rivers, causing plains to collapse. The phoenix of 10,000 flames that covered the sun and moon exploded one after another. The extremely fast-flowing light turned into a blade and cut Long Qinyue's blood-red blade light into pieces. His entire body was drowned in the endless lotuses, while the 8th-grade demon blade frantically tried to protect its master. Space warped and exploded. The plane was torn apart and completely sunk into oblivion. It could no longer withstand this shocking collision. Not good, retreat. Seeing that they could no longer protect the grand desert plain, the powerful figures did not care too much. They picked up the injured geniuses and frantically retreated. Forget about this plane. Protect the venue. Damn it, these young people are getting more and more terrifying with each generation. They have already turned the sky upside down. Lin Shun is the real monster. He took on all of these peerless geniuses by himself. I really admire him. The powerful figures of the older generation brought the injured geniuses back to the 4 venues as if they were fleeing for their lives. They were panting heavily. With their abilities, they could protect these injured geniuses and make them unscathed. However, they could not protect the terrifying impact caused by the collision of the dozens of people. What is the result? Did Lin Shen win, or did he lose on the genius list? Seniors, what is the result? Many sages asked anxiously. The 2 first rotation sages flicked their sleeves, and the scene of the destroyed grand desert plain appeared again. They saw broken pieces of space floating in the void. Sand and dust were everywhere, and smoke billowed, obscuring their vision. Everyone stared at the space screen, looking for the geniuses of their respective families. They were afraid that they would lose an arm or a leg. In the void, a young man floated in the air. His silver robe was torn, revealing his strong and muscular arms. It was Lin Chun. His aura was still as powerful as ever. On the other hand, the various geniuses were either injured or crippled. They floated in the void. Lin Chun was topless, and his hands were hugging a pair of round and slender, snow-white legs. The beauty's long dress was torn, and her beauty withered. Her incomparably beautiful side profile was like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. Under her thin and slender eyebrows, her crystal-clear eyes opened slightly. What the beauty saw was the young man's mischievous smile. "Why are you trying so hard? Although I am handsome, I am not your enemy. Don't you even have a final life-saving move for yourself?" The beauty in his arms was one of the top 10 beauties on the demon genius list, the Fairy of the Moon, Fei Qingwei. It was the first time she was so close to someone of the same age. The young man's masculine aura made her slender waist go soft. Fei Qingwei's pale cheeks flushed red. She bit her white teeth and pretended to be threatening. "Rascal, let go of me." She had used up all her saint power. She did not even have the strength to get up. She had used up all her strength in the attack just now. Lin Chun shrugged. "Let go of you? Are you sure? We are surrounded by spatial storms. Your saint points are all empty, and your defensive saint artifact was damaged by me. What means do you have to protect yourself?" After saying that, Lin Chun looked at Jinyang Ji, who was fleeing in the distance, and sneered. "Huh, a guy who can't even compare to a girl. How can he be ranked second on the demon genius list? Hey, how long do you want to hug me for?" Fei Qingwei scolded. She used to be cold and beautiful, but now she was so weak that even her scolding seemed like a spoiled child. "Then answer my question first. Why did you try to attack me with all your strength just now? You even tore my clothes. Could it be that you want my body?" Lin Chun teased, but he was curious. He did not seem to have any enmity with this girl. In the last round of attacks, this girl was the only one who could break through his defense and continue to hit him, Lin Chun. Otherwise, these peerless monsters would not even be able to tear Lin Chun's clothes. Because Fei Qingwei pursed her lips. "Because I want to be ranked first on the demon genius list. I will eliminate all difficulties. You have personality. I like it." Lin Chun smiled. "But you made a fatal mistake." Fei Qingwei was stunned and asked, "What mistake?" Lin Chun said, "That is, Lin Chun, will be your opponent. This target is too big. Change to another one." Fei Qingwei, whoosh. Lin Chun stepped into the air and carried Fei Qingwei back to the 4 great halls. He gave Fei Qingwei a strand of sacred power so that she could barely stand up. Whoosh. Countless sages focused their gazes on Lin Chun. Their eyes were filled with unprecedented seriousness and shock. The top 30 on the demon genius list were all defeated and severely injured. Lin Chun only tore his clothes. He was not even injured. There was no need to say anything more about this scene. Yi Lishue's beautiful eyes trembled, and her cold voice was trembling and shocked. The demon genius list has been overturned. This young man had succeeded. With his own strength, he had challenged everyone on the demon genius list. The summit of the demon genius list will be held as scheduled. The bald old man shouted excitedly. However, I will now announce that the first place on today's demon genius leaderboard belongs to Lin Chun, who is the title of deity descendant. At this moment, the 10,000 sects were boiling. Once again, they had witnessed the birth of history. This year's first place on the demon genius list was unprecedented. He had challenged all the monsters on the demon genius list and was ranked first. The unprecedented number 1 on the demon genius list, God, Lin Chun. Chapter 1543. He did it. He actually did it. Did you see that? This guy isn't even injured. He's 2F* king strong. He single-handedly defeated all the monsters on the demon genius list. He deserves to be number 1 on the demon genius list. He's the strongest in history. He's definitely the strongest in history. It's too exciting. I thought that there would be a winner in this competition. A new generation of geniuses is about to appear. The Saint Talent list might have another shocking saint talent. The 4 Venus were not noisy, but every saint's eyes were shining brightly. A new generation of geniuses had appeared. He was someone who could rival the Saint Talent list, Lin Chun. From today onwards, the reputation of the Demon Genius list would reach an unprecedented peak. However, the status of the Demon Genius list would no longer be as unattainable as it was in the eyes of the world. This was because one person had single-handedly challenged the entire Demon Genius list. He had completed this unprecedented feat. The Demon Genius list would become a new legend, but it would no longer be high and mighty. No one had expected this to happen because they did not even dare to think about it. In the VIP seats, Zhao Mingyu from the Zhao family stared blankly at the most eye-catching youth in the venue and laughed at himself. 2 years ago, he still had the ability to fight with him. 2 years later, he had only broken through 1 saint point and was already complacent. He even dared to call himself a monster. However, Lin Chun was no longer the same person as before. He was already so heaven-defying that he could single-handedly challenge the Demon Genius list. I don't even deserve to chase after his back. Perhaps I, Zhao Mingyu, am really no match for Lin Chun other than the power of my ancestors. On the other side, in the Yi family, Yi Lishua clenched her fists and muttered, "He did it. Could it be that he really will surpass the Saint Talent list one day and become one of the people selected for my final plan?" Yi Lishua was born to live and die for a mission. In order to plan her plan, she had to give up even her own daughter's happiness. Emotions were the last thing that needed to exist. Otherwise, the tragedy would never end. In the middle of the venue, Lin Chun put Fei Qingyu down. The beauty stood firm and watched as the young man bathed in the cheers of the audience. Her eyes flashed with hope. This was the position that she had once dreamed of. Now that it had been taken away from her, she was not depressed at all. In fact, there was even a faint sense of joy and joy. If there are no accidents, you should be number 1 on the Monster Genius list. Lin Chun smiled at Fei Qingyu and said, "Since I took your position, I should give you some compensation. Now, open up your soul. I will bestow upon you an opportunity." Thinking that with so many powerful beings here, Lin Chun wouldn't dare to do anything to her, Fei Qingyu was instead curious about what he would compensate her for. Just as she was about to open her mind, consumed 900,000 top-grade cultivation technique soul essences, beginning to fuse the cultivation memories of the target's cultivation method. Fei Qingyu's delicate body trembled as a large amount of cultivation memories appeared in her mind. This was related to the high-grade orange tier cultivation method that she had yet to cultivate to perfection, myriad moon piercing heaven. He can actually control my cultivation method. Lin Chun, who is he? Fei Qingyu's eyes were filled with shock. Lin Chun smiled and said, "Don't be distracted. Focus on absorbing these cultivation memories." Fei Qingyu took a deep look at Lin Chun before retreating to the VIP seats and focusing on absorbing the cultivation memories. Host has received 8 million set essences, 9 billion top-grade essences, 2 billion spiritual power, 1 million fire-type energy, 200,000 cultivation technique soul essences, 65 million rune energy, 150,000 heavenly Tao points. After Lin Chen's spiritual avatar plundered all the dropped attribute points in the Shattered Desert Plain, it returned to Lin Chen's body. The atmosphere in the 4 Venus became more and more lively. When it reached its climax, they had already brought out all the injured monsters. At this moment, the bald old man flew over and laughed heartily. "Congratulations, Lin Chen. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that there would be a precedent of awarding first place on the Monster Prodigy list before continuing with the summit." Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the bald old man first returned Lin Chen's bet, which was his Providence plant pouch, to Lin Chun. Following that, he took out a storage ring and handed out the 3 rewards for the first place on the Monster Prodigy list. The first reward was a 7th grade sage artifact called Heavenly Moon Sky. It was extremely valuable. The second reward was a superior grade spirit plant seed, and a supreme sage artifact known as the Essence Spirit Divine Flame. There were too many uses and values for this item. It could be used to refine pills or forge artifacts. If it was directly absorbed, there was a higher chance of making a breakthrough in one's spiritual realm. Lin Shen's face lit up when he received the lamp that was burning with pink flames. This Essence Spirit Divine Flame is more than enough for my searing spirit flying dagger to break through to the 8th grade. I can even refine a large portion of the Essence Spirit Divine Flame and attempt to break through to a new spiritual realm. After obtaining this item, Lin Chen's goal for this trip would be considered complete. Then, let's welcome this segment in advance today. Let's let the first place on the Monster Prodigy list speak his words of wisdom. At that moment, the bald old man laughed heartily. The sages in the 4 major venues were looking forward to it. Even the geniuses who had been defeated by Lin Chen could not help but look at Lin Chen. The words of wisdom of the first place on the Monster Prodigy list would be recorded every time. Anyone who obtained the first place on the Monster Prodigy list would have to share their experiences and hardships. This was also an extremely important segment. The first place on the Monster Prodigy list of every generation would be able to see through this segment. They would be able to see how many dangers and hardships the first place on the Monster Prodigy list had gone through to become the first place today. Not to mention, this time, they were going to challenge the first place on the Monster Prodigy list. Almost none of the saints would miss this segment. Everyone wanted to ponder over or find out some information about how he could be so powerful. While all the sages were looking forward to it, Lin Shun suddenly scratched his head and chuckled. Well, everyone, I'm in a hurry. I have more important things to do. I just happened to get the first place on the Monster Prodigy list. As soon as he said that, the 4 major venues were in an uproar. In a hurry? What the hell are you in a hurry for? What important things do you have to do that are more important than the glorious moment of the first place on the Monster Prodigy list? What do you mean by in a hurry? You're too good at pretending. Before all the sages and mighty figures could react, Lin Chun waved and laughed. That's all for now, everyone. Do whatever you need to do. I'm only here as a clone this time. Let's have supper together next time when we're free. After saying that, Lin Chun put on his self-made sunglasses, raised his hand slowly, and laughed mockingly. Goodbye, handsome boy. See you again. Snap. With a snap of his fingers, Lin Chen's figure turned into a wisp of smoke and disappeared in front of all the sages. Boom! At this moment, when they saw Lin Chen disappear, all the sages, mighty figures, and powerful people from the rank 8 sects felt as if they had been struck by lightning. A clone? It's just a F***king clone? The 4 major venues were plunged into dead silence again. All the sages stared at each other in disbelief. Their eyes were filled with unconcealable shock. Lin Chen's clone had challenged the entire Monster Prodigy list? A clone had defeated all the monsters on the Monster Prodigy list? Are you still human? What do you think the Monster Prodigy list is? Does the Monster Prodigy list not care about its reputation? Chapter 1544. What happened? Who am I? Where am I? Am I dreaming? Ha ha. Crazy. The world must have gone crazy. Regardless of how knowledgeable and powerful the business groups, the experts of the 100 clans, and the powerful sect were, they had never seen such a ridiculous scene. Not only did Lin Chun challenge the geniuses of the Monster Geniuses leaderboard on his own, he even used a clone. A clone had defeated the entire Monster Geniuses leaderboard. Not even a novel would dare to write something like that. Everyone was dumbfounded. It was the geniuses of the Monster Geniuses leaderboard who were completely dumbfounded. Their worldview, ethics, morals, and common sense had collapsed a few times within a short period of time. This Lin Chun was only a clone. Long Qianyue, who was ranked 3rd on the Monster Geniuses leaderboard, was lying on a stretcher covered in blood. There was a huge wound on his chest, with sacred blood pouring out. His hand that was covering his wound was trembling as he witnessed the scene. It was not a tremble of pain, but a spasm of anger. Xiao Changsheng, who was ranked 12th on the Monster Geniuses leaderboard, was lying in the arms of a beauty. His lips were trembling as he chewed the sacred pill. It was not the pain of his wound, but the fury of his anger. All the peerless geniuses had brought out their ultimate trump cards. They had ended up fighting a clone, fighting a lonely battle. Most terrifyingly, they had not even defeated him. After such a long battle, the geniuses of the Monster Geniuses leaderboard had only managed to scratch the clothes of his clone. The geniuses exchanged glances with one another in astonishment. Lin Chen's clone was already so powerful. If that was the case, how powerful was Lin Chen's real body? After a brief moment of astonishment, the summit of the Monster Geniuses leaderboard was in an uproar. Patriarch, this is bad. Young Master Long's wound exploded again. Patriarch, Bai Rong has rolled his eyes. Patriarch, the young mistress has fainted again in less than 2 breaths. Elder of the logistics department, bring me the sacred pills. Mother of Astra's cur, this Lin Chen still wants to piss us off before he leaves. What a despicable person. I'm not done with Lin Chen. Since it's my birthday, why give birth to me? Master, young Master's mentality has collapsed again. He has vomited 9 liters of blood now. Inside the 4 main venues, it was simply a scene of chaos. It was like a mantis shrimp crossing a river. This was especially true for those on the Monster Genius list. Everyone had a mental breakdown. Some were driven mad on the spot. Some doubted life. Some had already lost their minds. Some were already sick from anger, and some vomited blood on the spot, their bodies twitching in anger as if they had been electrocuted. In the past, the people on the Monster Genius list were the favorites of the human race. They were the pride of the era. No matter where they went, it was the Monster Genius list who bullied others. No one bullied the Monster Genius list. But today, for the first time, they met ruthless. This was probably the most chaotic summit in the history of the monster ranking. At the same time, it was also the moment when the number 1 monstrous genius in the history of the genius list was born. The seated mighty figures were also dumbfounded. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to continue operating the peak anymore. The injuries of the monsters were a small matter. Mentality was the most important thing. He had challenged all the monsters on the Monster Genius list with his clone. Lin Chen had destroyed the mentality of the entire Monster Genius list with his own strength. In the billions of years of the sacred boundary, Lin Chen was still the most arrogant. Lin Chen's reputation began to spread throughout the entire sacred boundary at the fastest speed, causing an unprecedented earthquake. Outside the Sky Sanctuary, on a sacred mountain in the Yellow region, bam! The ground shook and the mountain shook. Inside the sacred mountain, there were many tombstones and the atmosphere was solemn. However, there was a man covered in holy light who knelt and kowtowed in front of a tombstone in the sacred mountain, tears streaming down his face. Ancestors, this unfilial descendant is invincible. I'm ashamed to face the ancestors of the Shangwan family. Because of my personal matters, the Shangwan family is implicated. In this life, the Shangwan family will avenge this blood feud and kill that be *TCH to pay tribute to the ancestors of the Shangwan family. My lord gave me my life. After taking revenge, I, Shangwan Wudi, will definitely follow my lord to the Xinyan Palace. This person was one of Lin Chen's servants, the Zhan Kuang, who was imprisoned on the 19th floor, Shangwan Wudi. Back then, after he entered the Saint Talent ranking, his reputation reached its peak. He then withdrew from the 10,000 years later and cultivated in seclusion for another 10,000 years. He was still in high spirits and wanted to challenge all the experts in the world, wanting to be the most powerful person below the sage ruler. During one challenge, he fell in love with a woman for the first time. That woman had a clean background. Shangwan Wudi thought that he would stop challenging the world, but one night, he drank poison wine during an invitation. His strength was limited, and that woman worked with many enemies to destroy him and interrogate him. In the end, he was sent to the sacred prison. After losing Shangwan Wudi, a peerless genius, the Shangwan clan was completely destroyed. The entire family was uprooted, and their corpses were hung in the Dragon City of the Sky Sanctuary for 10 days and 10 nights. It was a tragic scene. Today, it was time to take back everything. Outside the sacred mountain, at the edge of cliff, Lin Shen's main body suddenly opened his eyes. He was now moving with his servants. If there was a grudge, then there was a grudge. If there was a grudge, then there was a grudge. Feeling that his doppelganger had completed its task, Lin Shen's main body opened the space-time dimension and let his doppelganger in the Ice Heart Palace take out the Yuan Spirit's sacred flame. Lin Shen didn't know what kind of terrifying waves his doppelganger had caused after leaving the summit. He only had one goal left in his heart, and that was to increase his strength and challenge the Divine Flame Palace. Very good. Only a quarter of the Yuan Spirit's sacred flame has been consumed. Now, I just need to wait patiently. My last Saint artifact will also transform to the 8th grade. Lin Shen was secretly looking forward to it. 2 months later, all of his sacred artifacts would transform into 8th grade divine artifacts. Lin Shen had personally experienced the power of an 8th grade saint artifact. Although one of the main reasons for this was the explosive increase in his cultivation, the 8th stage Absolute Blaze Saber was half the reason why he was able to cut down 800 Sacred Heart Realm super monstrous geniuses with heaven-opening realm battle prowess with one saber strike. God's tier. Lin Shen estimated that if the same technique was executed with a 7th grade Saint artifact and an 8th grade Saint artifact, the difference in power would be at least 5 times. It was on a completely different level. Not to mention, Lin Shen's 8th grade Saint artifact had been strengthened by the system. The difference in power was even more terrifying. Preparing an 8th grade Saint artifact was an essential part of challenging the Divine Flame Palace. With a thought, Lin Shen opened the system. Heavenly Tao Possession Gathering System version 7. 0 Host. Lin Shen. Cultivation. Mid-5th Heaven True Saint Realm. Peak Essence. 315 trillion points. Limit. 3200 Venerable Force. Flesh Shell Awakening plus 300%. Peak Blood Chi. 579 trillion points. Peak Spiritual Energy. 3,220 trillion points. Perfection Saint Realm. Peak Cultivation Technique Soul Essence. 21. 51 million points. Peak Rune Energy. 89. 6 million points. High-grade Heavenly Tao points. 95 million points. High-grade Talent points. 117. 5 billion points. Set Essence. 15. 9 billion points. Mid-grade Strengthening points. 2. 18 million points. Peak Elemental Energy. 700 million points of Fire Element. 700 million points of Earth Element. 700 million points of Wood Element. 700 million points of Metal Element. 700 million points of Water Element. 700 million points of Lightning Element. 700 million points of Wind Element. 600 million points of Light Element. 600 million points of Darkness Element. Set Column. Golden War God Set. Set. Ultimate Right Vambrace. Ultimate Left 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 Vambrace. Ultimate Armor. Blueprint. Innate Skill Column. Bloodline Status Column. Cultivation Technique Column. Life Awakening Column. Killing Technique Column. Unique Rune Column. Goodfellow, I've gained quite a few unexpected surprises this time. The set essence has actually exceeded 10 billion points. Even the cultivation technique Soul Essence and Peak Essence have gained a large number of strengthening points. Lin Shen was wild with joy. The strengthening points were incomparable to the past. Lin Shen barely managed to strengthen his divine dragon bloodline. Chapter 1545. How strong was the divine dragon bloodline? Lin Shen had personally experienced it, and it was not inferior to the bloodline of the son of the Demon King or the descendant of the gods. Even if it was strengthened by 1 level, the effect would increase by leaps and bounds. This was like Lin Shen expanding his acupuncture points by 30,000 times. Strengthening it by 1 level would increase the effect by 3,000 times. There is only one word to describe it: ferocious. System: I want to strengthen the ancient Taishi dragon bloodline. Consumed 500,000 intermediate strengthening points. Strengthening divine dragon bloodline. Ancient Taishi dragon bloodline successfully. Strengthening level +1. Strengthening effect increased by 10%. Rumble. The divine dragon in Lin Chen's body suddenly released its majestic dragon aura, and the space within 10,000 miles was shattered. Light was distorted, and Lin Chen was shocked to the point that he quickly suppressed its aura. Lin Chen licked his lips. As expected of the divine dragon bloodline, it's already so strong after strengthening by 1 level. System: give me 2 more. Consumed 600,000 intermediate strengthening points. Strengthening divine dragon bloodline. Ancient Taishi dragon bloodline successfully. Strengthening level +2. Strengthening effect increased by 10%. Consumed 700,000 intermediate strengthening points. Strengthening divine dragon bloodline. Ancient Taishi dragon bloodline successfully. Strengthening level +3. Strengthening effect increased by 10%. Faint golden divine light surrounded Lin Chen, and the illusory image of the primordial divine dragon appeared and disappeared. It was as if he was possessed by the divine dragon, and the majestic dragon aura was pure and mighty. It was as if Lin Chen's every movement was as majestic as the divine dragon's. After strengthening 3 times, Lin Chen's divine dragon bloodline had increased by 30%. This meant that when he released the Taishi divine light again, his defense would be increased by another level. Lin Chen's 2,180,000 intermediate strengthening points that he had accumulated for a long time was suddenly left with 380,000 points. The consumption rate of the divine dragon bloodline was truly terrifying. These strengthening points were obtained from Lin Chen, defeating the various demon lords, peak stage demon kings, and even those from the demon geniuses list. They were all gone in a matter of seconds. Strengthening to +15 is still far away. If I can strengthen the divine dragon bloodline by 15 levels, even a Saint King would not be able to do anything to me. I'll be strong enough to make their scalps go numb. Lin Chen sighed and continued to look elsewhere. System: I want to allocate the set essence to the War God set. Consuming 15. 9 billion set essence. Recharging. Aries set has been fully charged. Set tab. Gold Aries set. Ultimate right vambrace, 41%. Ultimate left vambrace, 40%. Ultimate left greave, 40%. Ultimate right greave, 40%. Lin Chen's Aries set had all broken through 40% charge. This round of challenging the Demon Genius list not only made up for what he had consumed in the Devil Realm, but it also filled Lin Chen with a whole new level of energy. After all, which monstrous genius on the genius rankings didn't possess a grade 6 or grade 7 Saint artifact? Lin Chen's final wave of attacks had all been destroyed. Many of the monsters who coveted Lin Chen's wealth had their life-saving sacred artifacts destroyed, and the number of set equipment essences that dropped wasn't small. This kind of boring and fulfilling feeling is really irresistible. The corners of Lin Chen's mouth curled up wildly. With the War God set at 40% charge, he could now compete with the top experts of all walks of life. However, the most important thing for a saint from the first refinement stage to the 9th refinement stage was the spiritual light produced by the brain saint acupoints. This was the biggest difference between a first refinement stage saint and a 9th refinement stage saint. The last 91 to 99 saint acupoints were all located in the brain. Every time one was opened, he would obtain 0.1 times his saint power. The most important thing for the 91 to 99 saint acupoints wasn't saint power, but a large amount of spiritual light. A saint's spiritual light not only increased one's reaction speed, but also had a stronger insight into everything. This was why orange grade techniques could only be created by saints who were first refinement stage and above. The complexity of an orange grade technique could only be created and contained by the spiritual light in the brain of a saint who was first refinement stage and above. Spiritual light was an innate talent of living beings. The stronger the innate talent, the more spiritual light one had. If one couldn't become a saint who was at the perfected heaven opening stage, it was very rare to see the size of one's spiritual light. Lin Shan couldn't see his own divine light, but he could increase his own divine light. That's right, Lin Shan had a similar growth path. Although he wasn't a first refinement stage saint, his reaction speed in battle was faster than a first refinement stage saint. That was his spiritual awakening. Lin Shan's ability to refine pills and become an 8th stage saint alchemist was largely due to spiritual awakening. According to Jiang Taishu's research, there was once an almighty person who discovered that spiritual light and the spiritual realm are very close. The increase in spiritual power can also affect a saint's spiritual light to a large extent. My spiritual awakening is the turning point in the middle. Spiritual awakening can increase my spiritual power instantaneously, allowing me to have a reaction speed comparable to a first refinement stage or even a second refinement stage saint. In battle, my saint power doesn't have the recovery ability of Saint Heart, nor does it have the explosive power of a heaven opening stage that surpasses a star receiver stage. In essence, as long as my reaction speed is comparable to a first refinement stage saint and my saint power isn't inferior to the opponent's, I can have the possibility of fighting a first refinement stage saint. That's right, spiritual awakening was the main reason why Lin Shan could fight a demon venerable. The other methods were only supplementary. Only spiritual awakening was the most important. Lin Shan checked his spiritual awakening. 3rd stage of awakening, 100% perfected. Spiritual power instantaneously increased by 200 times. Lin Shan had once sparred with his servants. If his spiritual power instantaneously increased to 60 times, he could match a first refinement stage saint's spiritual light reaction speed. If his spiritual power instantaneously increased to 150 times, he could match a second refinement stage saint. However, theory was just theory. There would be differences and discrepancies in actual combat. But at the very least, if Lin Shan faced a first refinement stage saint or above, he wouldn't be crushed like an ordinary monster. System: consume heaven's path points. I want spiritual awakening to perfected stage 4. Consume 80 million heaven's path points. Awakening hosts spiritual realm. Spiritual power instantaneously increased to 500 times. Buzz. A faint yellow light flashed past Lin Shan's eyes. When he looked at the world again, it was as if everything had changed. Everything seemed to be traceable. His spiritual power instantaneously increased to a whole new level. Coupled with his spiritual realm that far exceeded the past, when he fought again, the level would be completely different from before. Lin Shan's Heaven Advanced Dao points were instantly left with 15 million points. System: open the update key. Open the update key. Heavenly Dao Attribute Picking System version 8. 0 update requirements. 100 million high-level Heaven's Path points. 50 million top-level cultivation technique soul essences. 500 million mid-level strengthening points. 5 billion set essences. Version 8. 0 estimated unlocked functions. Complete set system. Release strengthening upper limit. Attribute value transfer system. Godhead system, and other functions. During the system update, host can use all functions of the system normally. Chapter 1546. Damn it, this update value is a little scary. Lin Shan rubbed his chin. This system probably wouldn't be updated in a short time. Attribute points. What a F***king shortage. The 5th ultimate armor of the God of War needs a lot of attribute points. This system update also needs more attribute points. Lin Shan couldn't help but sigh. If only there's another batch of demon lords for me to kill. Swoosh. At this moment, Shangguan Wudi's figure appeared in a stream of light, bowing. My lord, please excuse me. I've already made all the preparations. Buzz. Ripples appeared in the space, and Goddess Baiyu and Xiao Ling, dressed in white, opened a space passage, and appeared. Behind the goddess were Elder Hundred Burial, Ji Wuchen, Eye of Heaven, Gui Jianshou, Destruction Twins, and Zi Qianshou of the 12 Dao Palaces. They all appeared at the same time. My lord, we found the location of Wudi's enemy. Senior Taishu has already covered up the killing intent for us, and Brother Tianjin has already eliminated the aura for us. Xiao Ling bowed slightly, looking otherworldly and otherworldly. She was quite similar to Ning Qingxian, but there was a hint of obedience in her. Where's the target? Lin Chen clapped his hands and stood up with a smile. The old Ji Wuchen smiled and said, coincidentally, it's within the blood realm that I controlled back then. They even established an 8th rank sect. Their foundation is not bad. Very good, Shangwan Wudi. How did your enemy treat your family back then? As your lord, I order you to pay them back 100 times the price. Monstrous killing intent flashed across Lin Chen's brows. He was like a formidable hero of a generation, domineering beyond compare. If they dare to hang the corpses of your family members on the city wall, then go annihilate their entire family. Dig up their ancestral graves and burn them. I, Lin Shun, have never believed in fate. A life for a life is right and proper. What bullsh** T about retribution for evil? There's a heavenly Tao. Those who are free and unfettered in the world are mostly worried about the wicked. Kill them, and we'll be the heavens. Shangwan Wudi's eyes flashed with a boundless world of thunder and lightning. He cupped his fists and shouted, Wudi, take my order. Blood for blood. Lin Chen looked into the distance and sneered. Before challenging the Divine Flame Palace, let's destroy a grade 8 sect as a warm-up. Xiaoling covered her mouth and chuckled. My lord is truly an ambitious and ruthless person. Ha ha! Ambitious and ruthless? Forget it. I'm just a guy who doesn't care about life and death. If I'm not convinced, I'll do it. Lin Chen laughed heartily and waved his hand. Let's go to the blood realm. Understood. Xiao Ling flicked her sleeve, and a spatial cube appeared in the air, enveloping everyone. It instantly flashed and disappeared. The yellow region was extremely far away from the blood region. One was in the south, while the other was in the north. If a saint were to travel, even if they entered the fastest spatial passageway, it would take at least 100 years. However, this did not include some of the more powerful saints, especially the White Jade Fairy, Xiao Ling. She was the one who had truly mastered the myriad manifestations spatial divine technique and had once received the inheritance of a true god. Back then, Fairy White Jade's name was unparalleled in spirit realm. The Saint King's spatial transference or peerless movement techniques were far inferior in front of her spatial divine technique. Back then, a mighty figure from the Saint King region invited her to join a certain mysterious plan, wanting to use her spatial divine technique, but was rejected by Xiaolinger. In order to capture her, the Saint King region wanted to sneak in and force her to submit. They sent out a total of 2 Saint Kings and many peak saints. Even when she was finally detained in the saint prison, not a single saint dared to come within 300 meters of her. No one dared to underestimate her attainments in spatial divine technique. Getting close would be life-threatening, and Saint Kings were no exception. Lin Shun stepped into the spatial cube. He watched the spatial transference, and the scenery changed continuously. In less than a day, he had passed through 3 regions. In less than 2 days, high above the blood region's shattered bone mountain range, a spatial light flashed, and everyone appeared. Lin Chen held a roasted gluten in his hand, and was even a little dumbfounded. This is the myriad manifestations spatial divine technique? Isn't this too fast? Lin Chen sighed in amazement and couldn't help but ask Xiao Ling. With his current cultivation, using the 9 wings of the heavenly demon was already considered divine speed. But compared to Xiao Linger's myriad manifestations spatial divine technique, it was like the difference between a small bird and a great rock. They were not on the same level at all. My lord, that's not entirely true. If I use this speed normally, I would need to use more cultivation. Xiao Linger smiled slightly, her dimples like a flower, and her gaze turned to a handsome figure. But it's all thanks to Zi Qianzhou's help that I can reach this speed now. Zi Qianzhou nodded and smiled. A little spatial formation, a small trick. My lord, please don't laugh at me. Hearing that, Lin Shin suddenly felt that the roasted gluten in his hand was no longer fragrant, and the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. You call this a small trick? Then isn't my movement technique like a baby doing somersaults? Everyone burst into laughter. Even Tian Wu and Di Mie, who were serious in speech and manner, revealed a hint of a smile. This lord is very honest. 12 Palaces Zi Qianzhou, a peerless formation master, the founder of the 12 Palaces formation system. His formation mastery was enough to rank him in the top 3 of the sacred boundary. With his spatial formation paired with Xiao Linger's myriad manifestations spatial divine technique, he could truly achieve the heavenly shift. In less than 2 days, he could cross the distance of the 9 regions. Ji Wuchen smiled and said, My lord, you're still young and have unlimited potential in the future. You're much stronger than we were back then. It's only a matter of time before you surpass us. That was right. It was exactly what Guardian Lon of the Divine Flame Palace was most worried about. These experts, each of them might be extremely strong individually, but they still did not have the foundation to shake a 9th-rank sect. However, if there was someone in this world who could unite all of them into a team, it would be a team with unlimited possibilities in the world. Without a doubt, in the entire sacred boundary, perhaps only Lin Chun, who had broken into the holy prison alone, could do it. Even the Saint Talent ranking might not be able to convince these Saint Talents of the past. Blood Region, Divine Dragon Ridge, Azure Dragon Palace. This place was one of the headquarters of the Azure Dragon Palace. The Azure Dragon Palace was resplendent and dazzling with holy light. It was extremely difficult to imagine that such a desolate area could have such a fairy-like existence on Earth. Today, the Azure Dragon Palace Master was meeting an important old companion, an old friend who had carried out the extermination of the Shangguan clan mission with him back then. Aha! Your brother Su Yang has broken through to the 4th Transformation Saint in recent years. Why didn't you come to my Azure Dragon Palace? You don't treat me as one of your own. The Azure Dragon Palace Master sat at the head of the palace with an amiable and courteous expression. Occasionally, a bright light flashed across his eyes. He was hugging a peerless beauty. Her figure was hot, and her clothes were as thin as cicada's wings. She was full of tenderness, and her red lips were soft like cherry blossoms. Nothing could be more beautiful. She was indeed a peerless, enchanting beauty. Another saint with a stocky build raised his wine cup and drank heartily. He wiped the wine stains and laughed. What's there to celebrate about becoming a 4th transformation saint? How can it be as fast as you and sister-in-law? You're about to advance to 5th transformation. Back then, you've gained quite a lot from taking down the Shangguan clan. This Azure Dragon Palace might even become a first-rate 8th-rank force in the future. Ha ha ha. Please don't laugh at me. Come, let's drink again. Brother has cooperated once this time. Let's do it again. Oh, what prey have you set your eyes on this time? A declining 8th-rank sect. You and I have always had big appetites. Let's eat it together. Eat, we must eat. You had to eat quickly and accurately. It's fine if we don't open our mouths, but once we do, we must eat until our mouths are full of oil. The 3 looked at each other and smiled. At this time, an attendant's transmission came from outside the door. Palace Master, someone wants to see you. The Azure Dragon Palace Master frowned. Didn't I say that I won't see anyone today? The attendant said again. That person said he came to check the water meter. Azure Dragon Palace Master. Chapter 1547. Bang! Inside the Azure Dragon Hall, heaven and earth were overturned. The Azure Dragon Hall Master was sent flying by palm strike. He was bathed in blood and spat out chunks of blood, his eyes filled with disbelief. Shangguan Wudi, it's you. You're not dead? You you could still come out after entering a place like the Holy Hell? The Azure Dragon Hall Master looked at the tall man in front of him in shock and trembled as he muttered to himself, "This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible." Shangwan Wudi was clad in purple gold battle armor. His face was chiseled, and his cold face was filled with violent killing intent. His gaze was like two shocking bolts of lightning, and his cold, killing intent pierced through the clouds. "You will pay for all the lives of my Shangwan family's 390 people with blood. I will uproot all the families and businesses that were involved in your atrocities back then." Shangwan Wudi suddenly struck out with a palm strike, shattering all the defensive sacred weapons on his body. With a twist of his fingers, lightning exploded and formed a vortex that sucked him in. The Azure Dragon Hall Master's body instantly split open. It was actually an avatar that could save his life. "Save me, Jinglang!" When the beautiful woman screamed, the Azure Dragon Hall Master could not keep up with her at all. When he tried to escape into the void, he realized that the void had already been sealed. What kind of spatial secret technique is this? The Azure Dragon Hall Master was stunned. His figure reappeared, and he was still in the Azure Dragon Hall. This is the Myriad Forms spatial divine technique. The fairy smiled. When she arrived in the air, she stood behind the silver-robed youth. "Azure Dragon Hall Master, you didn't expect this day, did you? Back then, you set up a honey trap and took her down with poison." The silver-robed youth smiled mockingly. "Even if it's a holy hell, it doesn't mean that it's an uncrossable hell." A group of figures appeared beside the silver-robed youth. When they saw the people beside him, the Azure Dragon Hall Master and his brothers trembled, and despair appeared in their eyes for the first time. What kind of goddamn team was this? The strongest assassin in the Sky Sanctuary region, annihilation of heaven and earth. The overlord of the Blood Realm Forbidden Arts, 100 Burial Elder, Ji Wuchen. The Spirit Region's White Jade Fairy, Xiaoling, Xuanyu's Eye of Heaven, Worry. The origins of these people were so terrifying and ancient that if he hadn't witnessed their era all those years ago, he wouldn't have even been able to recognize them. Lin Shun pretended to be strict as he criticized. "What are you guys doing? Didn't I tell you to hide your identities? Why did you show them? Look at how scared they are. He even had to pee his pants before he died. It's too tragic." Everyone held back their laughter. This lord was really good at acting. She was clearly the one who told them to reveal their identities. "I'll kill you all." Their saint acupoints glowed brightly, expanding at an incredible speed in the blink of an eye. Self-detonation. The self-destruction of 2 Fourth Revolution sages was enough to flatten countless spatial planes. If they were allowed to explode, then everything in an area of a few million kilometers would probably be reduced to ashes. Spatial manifestation. Xiaoling flicked her finger, and a silver light flashed, transforming into a spatial force that enveloped the surroundings. In an instant, it contracted, and the two of them were locked within an extremely small spatial cube. Whoosh! Lin Chen's avatar appeared. Everything happened in 1,000th of a breath's time. Lin Chen struck out with his palm. Beyond the space-time plane, whoosh! The two of them vanished. In the void beyond the space-time plane, an earth-shattering energy heat wave suddenly exploded. Even their spatial sacred artifacts and Providence plant pouches were blown into pieces, turning into attribute light balls that filled the sky. These two people were determined to die. They didn't even leave behind their spiritual power when they self-detonated, completely evaporating. Yes, the system determines whether or not I participated in the encirclement of the enemy based on whether or not I used my innate talent or cultivation method to attack the enemy. Lin Shun thought to himself as he collected the attribute light balls in the space-time plane. There were 3 normal ways for living beings to drop attribute values. One was by not being killed by the host, commonly known as picking up heads. There weren't many attribute light balls dropped in this way. The second was by participating in the battle, but not being killed by the host. The attribute value dropped in this way was average, but under normal circumstances, there wouldn't be any supreme-grade attribute treasures dropped. The third was by directly killing the host. This was the most important step. If there were no special restrictions, the stronger the difference in rank, the higher the attribute light balls dropped. Woody, don't kill me. Back then, I was also threatened by him to poison you. If I didn't do this, my entire clan would have been wiped out. The enchanting beauty cried as she knelt in front of Shangwan Woody, begging for mercy. Shangwan Woody's face suddenly softened. He bent down and reached out to touch the beauty's snow-white cheeks. The beauty's body trembled. Seeing that there was some tenderness in his eyes, she couldn't help but feel relieved. Great, I've deceived him. He still remembers their old relationship, and I don't have to die. Back then, I fought with all the strong people in various regions and wanted to become the first person to be invincible below the Holy King. For you, I was willing to put away all the grudges. I thought you would be the woman who would change my life. I thought I could retire with you. You once had the chance to get everything, but you betrayed me. Shangwan Woody's face instantly turned cold. You poisoned me and colluded with others to kill me. I don't even blame you. But of all the things you shouldn't have done, you shouldn't have touched my people. That's my bottom line. In exchange for a bit of cultivation, you were willing to wipe out my entire clan. Why should I spare your life? Rumble. The entire Azure Dragon Hall was filled with lightning like dancing dragons. The sky instantly darkened, as if they had fallen into a world of thunderstorms. Shangwan Woody instantly struck out with his palm, which contained millions of lightning bolts, and hit the top of her head. Splat! Rip! Space was torn into a vacuum. Even blood did not splatter. A third revolution, Saint was slapped into a human skin on the spot. The beautiful woman might have been in disbelief even in death. If she had become Shangwan Woody's woman back then, she might not even have the possibility of surpassing the heaven-opening realm in this lifetime. However, killing the Shangwan family had allowed her to obtain the secret technique she wanted. She had broken through all the way to become a third revolution saint. However, she had never dreamed that Shangwan Woody would return one day. Shangwan Woody was expressionless as he killed the love of his life with his own hands. Seeing him like this, 100 Burial Elder, Ji Wuchen and Zi Qianshou revealed serious expressions. This kind of strong person was the most terrifying type. He had no attachments and no thoughts. The current Shangwan Woody was the most terrifying and ruthless person below the Sage Ruler. If Lin Shen wanted him to fight to the death with a Sage Ruler, he would not hesitate at all. Woody. Lin Chun patted his shoulder. Shangwan Woody hid his killing intent deep in his heart and cupped his fists respectfully. Thank you, Lord, for fulfilling my wish. Lin Chun smiled meaningfully. You have just been reborn. Don't let me down. Shangwan Woody was stunned and nodded heavily. Of course not. 3 days later, explosive news spread in the Blood Realm. The Rank 8 sect, Azure Dragon Hall, was destroyed. Even the 8 main territories were destroyed. None of the core elders survived, and their corpses were hung on the city walls. Countless experts guessed who it was that had the resources to destroy a Rank 8 sect. Not even a single core elder was able to escape. This meant that the other party had the strength to suppress the Rank 8 Azure Dragon Hall. Chapter 1548. The destruction of Azure Dragon Hall shocked all the Rank 8 families and sects of the Bloodfield. Everyone in the 3 regions near the Bloodfield was in danger. Even the Rank 8 sects were on high alert. What was terrifying was not the destruction of Azure Dragon Hall, but the fact that the corpses of all the elders of Azure Dragon Hall were hung on the city walls of Azure Dragon City. Only then did people discover that Azure Dragon Hall had been destroyed and its property confiscated. To be able to wipe out a Rank 8 sect from the sacred boundary without anyone noticing, this kind of foundation was not something an ordinary expert could do. However, all of this was like a gust of wind before the storm. 4 days later, the 12-story pagoda, which was known as one of the 3 Rank 8 forces of the battlefield, collapsed. On this day, the battlefield was completely overturned. The pavilion lords of the 12 floors were all rank 5 and rank 6 saints. Their old ancestor was even a rank 7 saint. His power was unparalleled. Even an extremely long time ago, the primordial venerable dragon, the Long family that Long Jioshan belonged to, was defeated by the 12-story pagoda and suppressed to become a small family. How could such a powerful foundation fall? That's impossible. This was the sect closest to the strongest rank 8 force. The entire battlefield was in an uproar. Everyone had a premonition that a storm was approaching the battlefield. Another 4 days later, in the neighboring Yin domain, the rank 8 divine martial family and half of the other families were destroyed. Those who died were all upper echelons of the divine martial family. They were extremely old and had experienced the beginning of the sacred boundary. They were second only to the Yin domain's Qi Fian and the other prodigies of that era. Now, none of them were lower than rank 5 saints. Although they were a group of old monsters that were like candles in the wind, they were not people to be trifled with. After losing their upper echelons, the divine martial family would definitely face destruction. Countless families would covet them. Almost at the same time, Ice Domain, Thousand Layer Snow Mountain, and Ice Dragon Mountain Range. 2 rank 8 families, True Martial Pavilion and Heavenly Brilliance Temple, were destroyed. 2 rank 8 forces were destroyed at the same time. This matter implicated all the upper echelons. Even the core disciples did not know when their elders, masters, deacons, and old ancestors had died. A large number of heaven-opening powerhouses, experts, and hidden old monsters came out one after another. There were even divination masters who were trying to deduce the fate of the heavens and divine the location of the danger. They were trying to figure out where exactly the danger was coming from. The first to make a move was the famous 8th rank aristocratic family, the Nangong family. The Nangong nobles had even sent out 3 great fortune tellers, Ancestor Nangong Tian and Grand Elder Nangong Shao. There was also Nangong Xiangyang, the most monstrous genius of the current generation, the mathematician of the 6 realms, a pretty boy on the monster ranking who had not been beaten up by Lin Chen. Within the Ice Dragon Mountain Range, the 3 great fortune tellers rushed to the scene and were the first to arrive at the True Martial Pavilion. They didn't enter the True Martial Pavilion. Instead, they took out the fortune teller's life tools outside the 1,000-fold snow mountain and began to deduce from the True Martial Pavilion's ominous position, calamity position, and calamity position. However, after a series of calculations, Nangong Xiangyang of the 6 paths of arithmetic was the first to react. No, everyone in the True Martial Pavilion, including every single disciple, had their omens, fortuitous opportunities, tribulations, and heavenly secrets concealed when the sect was destroyed. Nangong Xiangyang and his ancestor, Nangong Tian, looked at each other. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Could it be a fortune teller from a 9th rank aristocratic family? No. According to what I know, even a 9th rank aristocratic family might not be able to do such a thing. There is only one possibility for someone to be able to conceal the fate of so many people in such a short period of time, down to every flower and grass in the True Martial Pavilion. That was because the other party's realm of divination was far beyond their Nangong clans by hundreds of streets, and the entire street was as long as 108,000 li. Both parties were not on the same level. They were 2 completely different concepts. Just as all the grade 8 forces were waiting for the Nangong family to come back with an answer, the Nangong family closed down the next day. The Nangong family closed down their doors and fled. F***CK. This was not on the same level at all. If they tried to deduce further, they would die. The Nangong family's reaction stunned all the grade 8 forces. Some old fortune tellers did not believe it and continued to investigate the True Martial Pavilion. No matter how strong the fortune teller was, it was useless. The True Martial Pavilion and the Heavenly Brilliance Sacred Hall were destroyed. It was as if they were dead from the start, and no one had touched them at all. Such a method completely stunned all the saint-level fortune tellers. A peak saint-level fortune teller had come out. The fortune tellers fled in panic. The 9 Shadows organization, an assassin force from a grade 8 sect, sneered in disdain. The leader of 9 Shadows, Mo Xiaotian, even personally went to the destroyed Heavenly Brilliance Sacred Hall. However, half a day later, Mo Xiaotian, who was in the Heavenly Brilliance Sacred Hall, fell silent. He was holding a strangely shaped stick in his hand. It was broken into several pieces like a banana. What's going on with the leader? He has been staring at that stick for 15 minutes. Has the leader finally awakened some strange fetish? No, don't think too much. The leader's name is known everywhere. Even a 5th Revolution sage has to give him some face. Why would he like a stick? A few 9 Shadows assassins whispered at the side. A moment later, Mo Xiaotian's face, which was originally cold, showed some shock and amazement. Professional. Too professional. This aura removal method, this method of eliminating space traces, is flawless. Even a lampstick was not spared. The traces of sacred power were completely removed. This is more than killing without spilling blood. This is simply merciless. Mo Xiaotian sighed. If there's a chance, I really want to see the expert who can use such a method. He is simply an ancestor-level figure in the assassin world. Who could have such a method? The 9 Shadows assassins were shocked. Damn, is this for real? The leader of the 9 Shadows assassin organization actually called him an expert. Mo Xiaotian's gaze became especially deep. He stared at the void, and his pupils turned from black to dark green. His dark green pupils stared at the spatial patterns that did not have any traces of space changes. He tried to see through something, but in the end, he could only see nothingness. He muttered to himself, to be able to perfectly bypass the sect-protecting formation of a grade 8 force, to cover up the secrets of the heavens in all directions, and to have a superb aura removal method, as well as a traceless space shift method. What kind of team is this? After even the arrogant 9 Shadows left the Tianyao Temple, the various grade 8 forces fell silent. In the following period of time, on the surface, the sacred boundary was still calm and peaceful. There was no turbulence. But in reality, fear, bewilderment, suspicion, and despair began to secretly shroud the 36 regions of the sacred boundary. This time, it was the grade 8 families and sects who felt fear. All the grade 8 forces in the sacred boundary were shrouded by an invisible fear and trembled. Chapter 1549. In the 36 regions of the sacred boundary, an unprecedented piece of explosive news had just spread. The demon geniuses list had been overturned, and it was by one person. The current number 1 on the demon geniuses list, Lin Chun. What made people's scalps go numb was that he had challenged the entire demon geniuses list, and it was only a clone. For a moment, the sacred boundary was in turmoil. This huge earthquake spread with the heavenly sanctuary as the center. All the forces below the 7th rank could be said to be shocking. Those who had interacted with Lin Chun or had grievances with him had very interesting expressions. The youth who had once roamed the holy prison had now grown to a level that they could only look up to. However, while the sects were shocked, there was a dark haze that quietly shrouded the various 8th rank forces. The sacred boundary was so vast that it was impossible for the weaker forces to know so much news about the 8th rank forces in a short period of time. Only the 8th rank forces had the ability and channels to know about this situation. No one knew who would be the next victim of the devastating attack. One had to know that even the weakest grade 8 forces would have several heaven-opening cultivators overseeing them, as well as 2 First Revolution saints. In terms of the foundation of the entire force, there would be at least 6 heaven-opening realm experts and 4 First Revolution saints. This was the weakest level. Generally speaking, the 8th rank families were slightly weaker than the 8th rank sections. The families mainly worshipped their own people, while the sects would take in external experts to nurture their trusted subordinates. As for the stronger 8th rank sects, such as the Azure Dragon Hall and the Heavenly Brilliance Temple, they had Fourth Revolution saints. Even if a Fifth Revolution saint came personally, it was impossible to destroy them. Not to mention the 12-story pagoda, a super 8th rank giant with a strong foundation. To be able to quietly wipe out such a super 8th rank sect, what kind of terrifying force had appeared? Almost all the experts unanimously believed that a hidden 9th rank sect had appeared and wanted to destroy the sect to establish its prestige. Otherwise, it would be impossible to cross so many regions in such a short period of time and cause so many murders and sect extermination incidents. Apart from the foundation of the 9th rank sects, no other force could do it. Even if a damn Saint King had appeared, there would still be a sequence in killing people. It had only been a few days, and they had already rushed from the blood domain to the ice domain. In just a month, 10 rank 8 sects had been destroyed or half destroyed. Their fates were basically the same. Their foundations were destroyed, and their upper echelons were slaughtered. This speed was too terrifying. Even within the 36 regions, there are dozens of grade 8 forces in each region. Some regions even had hundreds of grade 8 forces. Powerful regions like the Heavenly Saint region would have hundreds of grade 8 forces. However, these rank 8 organizations have been born through the accumulation of the Saints' world over a long period of time, through the contention of the various schools of thought. Annihilating 10 grade 8 forces in a month? What the hell was this? Wouldn't that mean that they would have to massacre all the grade 8 forces in a single year? Finally, on the 35th day after the incident, a grade 9 force was the first to speak. The sky-bearing pavilion located in the heavenly sanctuary. One of the pavilion masters, Xing Jiuqian, was a 9th Revolution saint. He represented sky-bearing pavilion and announced that he would personally track down the enemy. Once he found the enemy, he would definitely suppress them. As soon as the rank 9 sect spoke, most of the rank 8 forces calmed down. Once a rank 9 big shot made a move, even if they could not settle the matter, they should at least be able to implicate the other party, right? Otherwise, the other party would have to be wary of them. However, it seemed that the more unexpected things were, the more things would develop in that direction. Sky-bearing pavilion of the heavenly sanctuary had not spoken for 2 days, and another grade 8 family in the heavenly sanctuary had disappeared. All the grade 8 forces were scared out of their wits. It was a slap in the face, a blatant slap in the face. It was obvious that they did not take the sky-bearing pavilion's warning seriously. This was simply taking a dump on the sky-bearing pavilion and asking them to hand them paper. After the shock, what followed was an even more widespread feeling of fear. Annihilating a grade 9 force directly in their territory? What did this mean? This meant that this professional team had the means to conceal themselves from the detection of grade 9 forces. It was equivalent to saying that annihilating a grade 8 force was as easy as picking out one's pants. It was confirmed that a grade 9 force had appeared. For a time, even the heavenly sanctuary was in turmoil. Even the summit of the monster list showed signs of stopping. All the grade 8 forces were forced to unite. Damn it, they're crazy. They must be crazy. This force is crazy. How many people do they have? How strong are they? Last time, they appeared in the yin domain. Why are they in the heavenly sanctuary now? Is this the legendary hidden grade 9 force that randomly chooses a lucky force to annihilate? If they continue to kill like this, are they going to massacre the human race? More than half of the grade 8 almighties in the heavenly sanctuary gathered together. All of them looked as if they had seen a ghost. They were never afraid of strong enemies. All the almighties in grade 8 sects were ruthless characters. What they were afraid of was that this time, the enemy was completely unknown. Moreover, the enemy was hiding in the dark and could annihilate them without anyone noticing. If they fought with their lives on the line, they would not cower. But if they went to court death, even a saint would not dare to be fearless. On the other side, Sky-bearing Pavilion's branch leader, Xing Jiuqian, personally came out of seclusion and went to the Qin family, a grade 8 family that had been annihilated. Sob, sob, sob. Lord Xing, You must uphold justice for us. The Qin family has made many contributions to the heavenly sanctuary for generations. I just went to the brothel. When I came back, my ancestral grave was gone. The Qin family's second-generation heir cried like a giant baby. Xing Jiutian, who had just arrived at the Qin family, glared angrily. His saint aura rolled out like a tide. Boom! The saint aura made the second-generation heir bleed from all his orifices. His spirit was shattered, and he fainted. The remaining members of the Qin family kept quiet out of fear, not daring to say anything. Xing Jiutian brought his men into the Qin family, patted his shoulder, and frowned. What kind of trash are the Qin family raising? Trash that is not even on the monster ranking. Cry all you want. He went straight to the Qin family's major seclusion dimensions. The treasury was either emptied or all the senior members of the Qin family were vaporized. Their spirit tablets were shattered, and they were completely dead. Not even their corpses were left. After half a day, Xing Jiutian completely understood the Qin family situation. He sat in the main hall of the Qin family with an uncertain expression. Lord, can our Qin family still be saved? A relatively young Qin family's Sacred Heart deacon could not help but ask. Xing Jiutian glanced at him. There is no saving you. Just wait for your death. At this time, beside Xing Jiutian, a rank 7 hunchbacked old man frowned. Pavilion Lord, I'm afraid this situation is... Xing Jiutian nodded. That's right. My guess is the same as yours. It is revenge. It is a very targeted revenge, and the target is very obvious. It is only revenge against the Qin family's older generation. None of the Qin family members born after the remote antiquity era died. Rank 9 sages were very intelligent and had quick reactions. They understood the situation in half a day. It is unlikely to be a rank 9 family. If it was a rank 9 force, they would not have mobilized such a large force in such a short time. The experts of a rank 9 force are very complicated. They would not easily mobilize such a large force. But this is a force that is even more threatening than a rank 9 force. Xing Jiutian's expression was very solemn. Chapter 1550. Xing Jiutian squinted his eyes. He seemed to be able to see the scene far away. In a way, this group is even more dangerous than a rank 9 force. Among rank 9 forces, they will not fall out with each other. Their foundation will not be affected. But this is an unprecedented revenge group. This group has a clear goal. They have many experts. They are decisive and ruthless. They will not hesitate and ignore Sky-Bearing Pavilion's warning. They have ill intentions and are extremely vicious. Another mature and enchanting rank 6 beauty stood out, saying with lingering fear, Pavilion Master, if we encountered this group... Speaking of this, Xing Jiutian's eyes shined with bright light. If we encountered them and fought them head-on, our chances of victory might be less than 10%. Once Xing Jiutian said this, the entire Qin clan felt a chill run down their spines. Oh my God! Even these almighties from grade 9 forces said that they had less than a 10% chance of winning. What kind of existence had the Qin family's patriarchs provoked? Should we interrogate these Qin clan members to see if they know anything, and if they offended anyone in the past? The rank 6 enchanting woman suggested. Xing Jiutian looked at everyone and shook his head. It is useless. They're just a bunch of youngsters. Why would those old fogies of Qin clan tell them anything? Every expert has their hands and feet dirty when they start up. It is normal to offend some people. Xing Jiutian revealed a reminiscing expression. I remember some rumors. Back then, Qin clan was at its peak, but they schemed against the two great geniuses, the destruction twins Heaven and Earth Annihilation, trying to recruit them. But I heard that they fell out with each other after that. Speaking of this, even Xing Jiutian shook his head and laughed. However, the destruction twins have been in the Saint Prison for a long time. No matter how powerful they are, they can't possibly break through the Saint Prison and escape. Break out of Sacred Prison and escape? Even novels would not dare to write such a thing. Thinking of this, Xingju Tian could not be bothered to recall the rumors of Qin clan. He said with a stern expression, "This matter is not something we can handle. Anyone below the Sacred King level will die. Report this to the higher-ups." Sacred Boundary, while a storm was brewing in a void plane. A handsome young man with a pale and evil appearance was holding a glass roll. He looked at the #1 position on the Demon Genius board and sneered. "You're also sitting at this position, Lin Shun." He exerted strength in his 5 fingers with a loud sound. The evil young man crushed the glass roll in his hand. "I didn't expect that you would actually do such a world-shaking thing. I just don't know if you can bear the corresponding price." This person was the former #1 on the Demon Genius board, Een, son of heaven. Swoosh. A dark shadow that was distorted like ink appeared, and a hunchbacked old man with a walking stick appeared. His eyebrows were filled with ruthlessness. "I'm going to personally devour the shadow beside that brat." 14th stage of the final shadow. Judging from his appearance, his injuries from back then had already completely healed. "How is the clear sky, Saint King?" Een, son of heaven, smiled and patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry, Lin Shun won't be able to escape." Ultimate Shadow's expression eased a little, and he nodded. "There are many benefits to occupying Buddha Saint's body. I found a location of the Dragon Balls with the ancient divine dragon's blood in this old man's collection, and they are all accurate. Thanks to the demons, they have all brought back the Dragon Balls. His main body should have started to recover in the Sacred Burial Mountain range." Een, son of heaven's expression was a little serious. How is his recovery? If he recovers to his peak state, it won't be good for us." Ultimate Shadow sneered. "So what if he has the Dragon Balls with the divine dragon's blood essence? It won't be easy for him to recover to his peak state. At most, he will recover half of it, and he will still be a living dead." "That's good." Een, son of heaven, nodded. "By the way, you said that the kid has a lot of helpers. What's going on?" Ultimate Shadow frowned and stared at Een, son of heaven. He smiled casually. "There are indeed many experts, and each of them has a big background. If some of them were at their peak, I might not be their match. They are that strong." Ultimate Shadow was shocked. "They are strong, but I'm afraid he doesn't have the qualifications to lead that team. Ha ha." Een, son of heaven, laughed loudly, his eyes shining brightly. When Een, son of heaven, had brought 9 evil sword halls heaven-opening realm to the mystic realm, if he had insisted on fighting Lin Shun to the death, he would have been able to get rid of a large number of his servants. In fact, he, son of heaven Een, could even kill over 2/3 of the servants by Lin Chen's side. However, he would have died without a doubt. Even if he was heavily injured, the experts by Lin Chen's side, especially those legendary figures, were still 9th Revolution saints. If the other party disregarded everything and released his cultivation that was suppressing his injuries, he would explode with his strongest attack in the shortest amount of time. In that case, Son of Heaven Een would definitely have no chance of winning, and there was even a high chance that he would die. Instead of dying together, he might as well retreat and preserve his strength. Now, Een, son of heaven, felt more and more that his decision was correct. During this period of time, he finally figured out who those big shots by Lin Chen's side were. Ancient God, your eyesight is still so shrewd. You can even find such a young man, and you want to overturn the case again. Even someone as arrogant as Een, son of heaven, couldn't help but be amazed by Lin Shun. Outstanding people would always admire and attract each other. Unfortunately, the two of them were never on the same path. Since they couldn't be partners, they could only destroy each other. Shadow, only you can complete this task. You have to send this item to a place. Een, son of heaven, flicked his finger, and his Een heaven talisman floated in front of Ultimate Shadow. Where? Ultimate Shadow was curious and didn't give Een, son of heaven, any face, directly opening the Een heaven talisman. The next moment he cried out in shock. Holy prison? Outside the sacred boundary, in the distant starry sky, stars twinkled, and the galaxy was vast. Under the starry sky, countless energy storms wreaked havoc, but there was a darkness hidden deep under the starry sky, as if it had never changed. Hum! A dark shadow dotted the void, and the dark energy waves turned into a curtain of darkness that rolled out. Dozens of figures took human form and floated in the air, but the strange thing was that their facial features were a mass of darkness. These beings weren't humans. When the curtain of darkness was lifted, another world was hidden under the galaxy. Countless continental plates floated in the air, and dark energy surged around them as if it had cut off the entire space. There were countless strange buildings inside the continental plates, and most of them were in the shape of minarets. Every minaret was shrouded in a mass of darkness, and they seemed to be resting and holding their breath. The dozens of figures surged into one of the continental plates, and the dark energy under the tumbling galaxy closed again as if the space had never changed. Inside a dark hall, hundreds of dark shadows floated. They emitted a mysterious spatial fluctuation between each other. This was their race's unique way of communicating. In human language, it was roughly as follows: perfect, too perfect. I didn't think that someone would pass the test of the innate Dark Shadow King. After the ancient era, this child will definitely be the next Dark Shadow King of the Dark Shadow race. He will definitely lead our race to prosperity. But he has many bloodlines. The king of the Dark Shadow race shouldn't be a bastard. Bastard my ass. Can't you see the potential in him? The physical body of the dragon race, the divine abilities of the demon race, and the talent of the Dark Shadow race. He has the infinite possibilities of our race. He makes up for all the shortcomings of the Dark Shadow race. The Dark Shadow race shouldn't let an outsider like him inherit the throne. If you talk nonsense again, I'll tear your big mouth apart. Damn it, are you looking for a fight? A group of innate Dark Shadow race experts were arguing here, but on the surface, they seemed to be making gugga-guggu sounds. It sounded like pigeons. Yep, pigeons. Chapter 1551. Thousand Regions, a rank 8 sect, Cloud Rain sect. It was the most prosperous sect among the female prodigies of the Thousand Regions. The Cloud Rain sect was one of the best, even among the Great 8 factions. Their founder was a peerless genius, one of the Thousand Regions' Scarlet Twin Absolutes. His talent was astounding, and although he was not ranked on the Saint Talent rankings, he was comparable to the Saint Talent rankings. It was said that she had already become a powerful rank 7 saint in her early years. Her sect's overall strength was top-notch even among the rank 8 forces in the Sacred Boundary. Cloud Rain Mountain Range. This mountain was covered in clouds and rain. It was as beautiful as a paradise in the human world. At the peak of the mountain range, on the top floor of a violet cloud pavilion, a beautiful young lady in a green dress was sitting on a cloud platform. She propped up her jade-like cheeks and swayed her slender snow-white legs. Clouds and mist swirled around her. The young lady was hidden in the immortal mist like a celestial fairy. Her beautiful eyes flickered, and there was sadness in her eyes as she recalled the past. Sister, our dream back then has already been realized. When will you be able to witness this moment? The girl in the green dress gritted her teeth. Damned sacred prison. What dogs hit gods? What history of creation? It's all for the sake of hegemony. Master, you just came out of seclusion, and you're thinking about that martial uncle again. At this time, the girl's cold and pleasant voice sounded. The girl in the green dress put away her sadness and jumped off the cloud platform with a bright smile. So it's Xinhua. How was it, my precious disciple? Did you get first place on the Demon Genius board? The beauty was wearing a snow-white dress and holding 2 cups of fragrant tea. There was a hint of helplessness on her cold and beautiful face. No, I met some annoying things and an annoying and mysterious guy. The beauty was Fei Qingyue, ranked 5th on the Demon Genius board. The girl in the green dress took the tea and sat down casually. She smiled. You're not young anymore. It's time to find someone to marry. Fei Qingyue rolled her eyes and sat beside her master with a cup of tea. She pouted her lips and said unhappily, Master, didn't you teach us that women can also hold up half the sky? The girl in the green dress chuckled. that doesn't mean you'll be single forever. What does holding up half the sky have to do with finding a man? At most, your man can't hold it up, and you can help him hold it up. Fei Qingyu was unconvinced. Then, Master, why don't you find a man? The girl in the green dress puffed out her chest confidently, swaying the waves of snow as she proudly said, "That's because no man is worthy of your master." Fei Qingyu curled her lips. "If you don't want to marry, then don't marry. No one is worthy of you, TSK. The girl in the green dress smiled and said, "What about you? Are all the men you know not good enough for you? That can't be right. According to what Master knows, there have already been saints who have offered you an olive branch." Fei Qingwei was stunned. Many scenes flashed through her mind. In the end, it stopped at the sight of the topless young man's face and the way he challenged the entire monster genius list. He was like an invincible god descending from the heavens. When she saw that her disciple had actually stopped, the girl in the green dress desire to watch the show immediately burned fiercely. Her beautiful eyes emitted a holy light, and her snow-white dimples were full of smiles. "Ioyo, you actually stopped talking. Come, tell me. Which little bastard is so lucky to be able to hook up with my disciple? Qingwei?" Fei Qingyu rolled her eyes, and her delicate ears turned slightly red. She harumphed coldly. "I'm not. I didn't say it. I didn't. Don't talk nonsense. You're anxious. Hurry and tell me. Who is it?" The girl in the green dress was even more curious. Although this lass was peerlessly talented, she was an orphan from a young age and was abandoned in an ordinary family. Later on, a diviner of Cloud Rain sect calculated that a baby with a monstrous talent had appeared in the vicinity of Cloud Rain sect. That was how she was found and adopted. After understanding her background, Fei Qingyu empathized with her and was willing to make an exception to take her in as a disciple. After Fei Qingyu acknowledged her as her master, she even changed her surname. The relationship between the two of them was that of a teacher and a friend, with a strong sense of kinship. In her heart, she hoped that this lass could have a home of her own. Time truly does not show mercy. You even have a child now, Qingyu? When the ethereal and elegant voice reverberated through the cloud platform, the girl in the green dress froze on the spot, as if she was struck by lightning. This voice, this tone, whoosh. At that moment, the clouds parted and the spiritual smoke dispersed. A ray of light shone into the cloud platform of Cloud Rain sect. When it shone on Fei Qinyu's jade-like cheeks, her light red dress fluttered. The beauty was like an orchid in a secluded valley. When she smiled, the world seemed to be reborn. "Qinyu, long time no see. Sister, is it really you?" Fei Qinyu's body trembled. When she walked over, she cried tears of joy. Her eyes were filled with ecstasy and shock. During the primordial age, the great war of thousands of sects of the sacred boundary had involved billions of living beings in the war. She and her sister had depended on each other for survival since young. She expected that one day, she would be able to build her own home with her sister. Women should strive for self-improvement and survive in this cruel era without relying on anyone. After that, she and her sister experienced countless tribulations and attained the Great Tao, seizing opportunities to surpass Khanate sages and become the Thousand Domains Scarlet Twin Absolute. Back then, when the two sisters were standing at the peak of the Thousand Domains era, her sister was attacked by the Holy Prison. In the current era, the Holy Prison was just established. It gathered power and ordered all forces at the sacred boundary to obey its orders. Any genius without a background of a rank, 9 Force would be punished by the heavens if they did not obey the orders of the Holy Prison. As for the strongest people in the world, they were all suppressed and thrown into the Holy Prison, becoming the power of the Holy Prison. Back then, if her sister had not surrendered herself to protect her younger self, she would have been imprisoned in the Holy Prison as well. After that, many peak-level saints who did not have a strong background either directly retired or joined 9th grade forces to protect themselves. Only those who were stubborn were suppressed, and the prides of many eras were completely eliminated. Most of the peerless geniuses and sages that were born after that had great backgrounds. Fei Qinyu wanted to save her sister even at the cost of her life. But against the colossal holy prison, even someone as strong as a sage was no match for it. She never thought that she would be able to meet her sister again today. It's me. I'm back. And I'm back in one piece. When Fei Wuxuang smiled, the girl in the green dress immediately rushed over and hugged her, tears welling up in her eyes. Sister, I missed you so much. Woo-woo. Fei Qinyu, who had cultivated for dozens of eras and was incomparably strong in everyone's eyes, was now like a little girl who had been wronged. She shed tears in her sister's arms without regret. Caressing Fei Qinyu's hair, Fei Wuxuang sighed and then smiled at Fei Qingyue. Little girl, how old are you? 3,007 years old. Fei Qingyue was so shocked that she subconsciously replied, Your martial aunt Wuxuang? She had heard her master mention that this martial aunt was imprisoned in the holy prison and was one of the strongest who was suppressed back then. Fei Wuxuang didn't immediately answer her. A sacred light flashed in her beautiful eyes, as if she had seen through all of Fei Qingyu's secrets. In an instant, Fei Qingyu felt a piercing pain, as if every inch of her flesh had been seen through. This is Qingyue, an orphan disciple I took in. She's one of us, so don't worry about me. Hurry up and tell me, how did you come back? Fei Qinyu smiled with tears in her eyes, then looked at Fei Wuxuang's body with concern. Sister, how are you now? After you were locked up in the holy prison, did those people torture you? Did they do anything excessive to you? Fei Wuxuang smiled sweetly. They wanted to. Even though I was imprisoned, no one below the Holy King level dared to touch me. Even if a Holy King level powerhouse wanted to touch me, they would have to consider whether to lose a few pieces of flesh for a moment of lust. Fei Qinyu nodded in agreement. She knew her sister's strength the best. Even if her cultivation had not reached the Holy King level, there were only a few Holy Kings in the world who dared to touch her body so unscrupulously. Back then, the Demon Empress had forced the gods to retreat with a single slash and killed her way through the holy prison, freeing a large number of vicious powerhouses, where her sister was not among them. Fei Qinyu was worried and conflicted. I have to thank my lord for being able to come out. Fei Wuxuang smiled. Fei Wuxuang's expression changed slightly, and she retreated. She said in a trembling voice, Sister, did you submit to the demon race? Look at how scared her sister was. Fei Wuxuang smiled and said, No, my lord is a human. She looked into the distance. He just happened to be here. Compared to me introducing him, it's better for you to see him with your own eyes. As soon as she said that, boom. At this moment, the clouds rolled in the sky, and a handsome silver-robed figure gradually appeared. He stepped on the air, and a teasing smile appeared on his handsome face. Wuxuang, although it's a joy to meet as sisters, let's go back to the Ice Heart Palace first. Fong Ling and Lang Fanyan's enemies have been dealt with, and there's not much time left. Fei Wuxuang smiled like a flower. My lord, please wait a moment. Fei Qinyu felt like she was struck by lightning. My sister's master is actually such a young saint. Other than being handsome, this kid didn't seem to have anything else. However, what was even more shocking was Fei Qingyue, whose red lips were wide open. Lin Shun, he was actually the lord of this legendary martial uncle. Even if he could challenge the demon race list alone, he should still be very far away from a powerhouse like her master. This martial uncle had already become a 9th Revolution saint back then, and was a genius who led the Thousand Domains era. Where did he come from? Chapter 1552. Fei Wuxuang looked back at her younger sister and said solemnly, Qinyu, quickly greet Lord Lin Shun. Fei Qinyu was taken aback and awkwardly bowed to a junior. Qinyu greets Lord. It was her first time bowing to such a young man. Lin Shun waved his hand and smiled casually. No need. Wuxuang, don't bother with these. This beauty looks a little familiar. Oh, it's the pretty girl from the monster genius list. Lin Chen's eyes turned, and when he saw Fei Qingyu, he suddenly understood. Fei Qingwei was still rooted to the spot in shock. Martial uncle had returned and called Lin Shun, who was of the same generation, as Lord. These two pieces of information were too explosive, and Fei Qingwei felt that her brain was not enough to process it. Which ninth revolution saint wasn't the most powerful person in the world? Even sage kings might not be able to subdue them, let alone martial uncle who was one of the best among ninth revolution saints. Could Lin Shun be stronger than a sage king? She immediately thought of the words he said after he challenged the monster genius list. I'm in a hurry, and I have important things to do. Now, it seemed that this was not a bluff. Perhaps he really did have an important matter of becoming the #1 on the monster genius list, especially when he bestowed her with a good fortune, mastering a high-grade orange cultivation technique in half a month. After cultivating to the great success realm, he only lacked one item to reach the great perfection realm. Even a sage king might not be able to compare to this. Lin Shunyu? Who are you? Fei Qingwei couldn't help but ask. Lin Shun had a serious expression as he solemnly said, You finally discover my secret? Fine, I'll tell you in advance since I have to announce it to the world one day. Fei Qingwei held her breath. What kind of secret was this? Lin Shun said seriously, That's right, I'm the most handsome man in the sacred boundary. Fei Qingwei, Fei Qinyu, Fei Wushuang. I'm already used to it. Since Lord is in a hurry, let's talk while we walk. Fei Wushuang smiled. Fei Qinyu turned to look at Fei Qingwei with a serious expression. Qingwei, I'll leave the Cloud Rain sect to you for now. With your prestige, no one in the sect is unconvinced. After saying this, Fei Qinyu left with her sister, leaving Fei Qingyu alone in the wind. Before leaving, Lin Shun even turned around and winked at Fei Qingyu with a playful expression. Fei Qingyu gritted her teeth in anger. This man was so damn flirtatious, and he was even trying to keep her in suspense. If you want to watch, go to the Godflame Palace in the Sage Monarch domain. But don't get too close. The young man's laughter reverberated in Fei Qingyu's ears, and by the time she reacted, he had already left. Fei Qingyu muttered to herself, Divine Flame Palace? Could it be the recent god investiture ceremony? Why is he going to the Divine Seal Ceremony? Divine Mysteries Pavilion, Heavenly Sanctuary Region. This was the most famous 8th grade force in the Heavenly Sanctuary. Even 9th grade forces would treat them with respect. That was because the most elite and freakishly talented diviners were gathered here. Not even the forces of the Sage Monarch domain dared to underestimate them. Today, all the saint-level diviners of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion had come out of seclusion. That was because there were too many experts who had begged the Divine Mysteries Pavilion to help them deduce the future trends of the sacred boundary and help their forces calculate. Unfortunately, even someone as powerful as the Deputy Pavilion Lord of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion could not deduce what the situation was this time. On the top floor of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion, in a secret meeting room, the fragrance of tea lingered in the air. 2 men and a woman sat there cross-legged. The man had a sage-like demeanor, while the woman was still charming. The Heavenly Sanctuary region has been very lively recently. Many sage geniuses have appeared. I'm afraid they're going to stir up trouble. What a bunch of restless fellows. I'm afraid the great calamity that the Divine Mysteries Pavilion predicted is coming soon. Are we going to part ways? The trend of the world is that those who are separated for a long time will unite, and those who are united will divide. The 2 sage-like old seniors shook their heads and laughed. It was as if they had already seen through everything in the world. The charming woman in palace attire looked at the starry sky. Her eyes shone with a strange light as she reminisced. If only he were here. If he were here, he would definitely be able to improve further and pry into the secrets of heaven. Perhaps the great calamity of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion would not be impossible to deal with. The other 2 old men sighed. That's right. Our ancestor once prophesied that he would be the most outstanding fortune-teller in the history of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion. We thought that he would need 10,000 years to reach that level, but he advanced in less than 1,000 years. The beautiful woman gritted her teeth. That damned sacred prison. They said that his existence would make heaven and earth lose balance. They are obviously targeting us. It's a pity that the Divine Mysteries Pavilion is only a fortune-teller organization and not a powerful Rank 9 sect. The two old men could only sigh deeply when they heard that. In heaven and earth, when a person's ability reached the peak, they would naturally attract the wind and attract an ominous calamity. It was as if even he had boasted that he was destined to face such a calamity. The beautiful woman in palace attire pursed her lips. It's a pity that before he was detained in the sacred prison, his greatest wish was to solve that senior's exquisite chess game. Not being able to solve the game might have become Taishu's lifelong regret. The two old men looked at each other and stood up after sighing with emotion. Haha, since you mentioned an old friend, why don't we go and see how he solved the game back then? With that, the two old men flicked their fingers and teleported. The three of them arrived at a sacred mountain of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion. Immortal fog surrounded them like clouds and dragons swallowing fog. At the peak of the sacred mountain was a heavenly lake and a chessboard that was dozens of feet long. The chessboard was decorated with starlight, as if it was connected to the heavens. Every chess piece contained profound principles and endless providence, as if they were living beings. And when the chess pieces were connected, each connection would create more possibilities. There were a total of 9,999 chess pieces on the chessboard. They contained the great Tao and were in harmony with the heavenly Tao. It formed the shape of a supreme treasure, Linglong. When the three of them saw the exquisite chess game again, they could not help but feel emotional. Only a fortune teller who had divined billions of heavenly secrets could possibly set up such a godly chess game. When the three of them walked closer to take a look, they were instantly dumbfounded. The game had been reversed. The chess pieces were also exquisite patterns, but they had been completely reversed. They were all interconnected and guided the great Tao of heavenly secrets. Boom! The minds of the three went blank. The exquisite chess game has been broken. What's going on? When did this happen? Why did no one notice such a change in the Divine Mysteries Pavilion? Wait, look, there are words left on the chessboard. A layer of five-colored sacred light was faintly flowing under the exquisite chess game. Everyone took a closer look. The sacred light outlined an ancient scroll. I didn't know the true face of Mount Lu, but I was fated to be in this mountain. Today, after breaking down, I stood up. With my exquisite heart, I illuminate the mountains and rivers. In the great void, the heavenly Tao is free. Witness the countless tribulations of the past. Observe the history of the past and present. Don't enter the 6 realms. Don't ask the 9 realms. Don't ask for the gods. Don't ask for falsehoods. My heart follows my Lord, and there will be no gods. If you ask who broke this game, it will be me, the master of the great void. A string of sacred words flowed majestically and elegantly. Hot tears soaked her cheeks. The beautiful woman in the palace gown covered her red lips. Her tears of joy were filled with shock. It's him. He's not dead. He's still alive. He even left the holy prison and returned here. Could the most powerful fortune teller in the history of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion, Jiang Taishu, be returning to the sacred boundary? Chapter 1553. Jiang Taishu, the most powerful fortune teller in the history of the Divine Mystery Pavilion, was going to return to the sacred boundary? But how did he return from the sacred prison? Wait, why would a team suddenly appear in the sacred boundary and massacre all the grade 8 forces? Their movements were so powerful that even the Divine Mystery Pavilion could not predict it. And Jiang Taishu just happened to return at this time? When the two elders of the Divine Mystery Pavilion stared at the sacred text burning in the sacred light, their pupils dilated. They started calculating at the same time, trying to deduce the recent events and opportunities. Coincidence? It was too much of a coincidence. It cannot be so coincidental. The two elders started calculating, and their hearts trembled. No matter what, the sacred boundary was going to change. In the firmament star field, inside a broken continental plate, Sword Chi was everywhere, and saber intent was everywhere. Sword Chi was as sharp as a crescent moon, hanging in the sky. On a sacred mountain inside the continental plate, a white-robed man with dashing brows and bright eyes was sitting cross-legged. Sword Chi was everywhere around him, cutting through the void. He had a vague feeling of reaching the peak. Beside him was a fierce man leaning against a cliff. His face was chiseled, and his features were firm. However, he had a mocking smile on his face. Fong Ling, how do you feel after killing your old rival? These two were Lang Fanyun and Fong Ling. Fong Ling's expression was indifferent as he said slowly, I don't feel much. At most, I got rid of a thought. When I first became a 9 transformation saint, I wanted to beat him up. I didn't expect that old fox to run so fast. If he had counterattacked before he died, without Jiang Taishu's help, I might have been injured. Lang Fanyun took a big gulp of wine and laughed. Say, if the two of us were not in prison back then, who do you think would have reached the godlike saber intent and sword intent in the sacred boundary? Or us, godlike sword intent and saber intent. In every era, only one godlike saber intent and one godlike sword intent could exist in the sacred boundary. Back then, the two of them were the ones closest to the door. But now, the godlike saber intent and sword intent in the sacred boundary had their own masters, and they were both sacred kings. Therefore, it was not a coincidence that Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun were imprisoned in the Saint Prison. The interests involved were complicated and chaotic. What they killed were only the brothers of their enemies. The enemy's leader hadn't really died yet. A rare smile appeared on Fong Ling's face, as if ice had melted. There's no way to find out the answer. There are no ifs in life. The fellows from the same generation, as us who did not go to prison, either stagnated or became saint kings. Ever since I met my lord, being number one in the way of the sword has long been out of my sights. In my heart, I have long since given up on the sword god. This sword was born for my lord. Lang Fanyun stopped drinking and looked at the distant starry sky. That's right. If it's my lord, he might be able to do it. No, I should say that there's no one more suitable than him. If even he is unable to end this era of demons and monsters, then we sword saints and saber saints will never be able to rise again. As soon as he said this, the sharpness between the two men's eyebrows became even more intense. At the foot of the mountain, 7 figures gathered. Jiang Taishu was among them. Gue Jianshou, who had the heavenly eye, seemed to have seen something powerful with his greenish-yellow sacred eye. Seniors, could it be that the two of them have come into contact with Qi Fian nodded and sighed. Just as you guessed, the saber and sword saints, who were invincible in the sword domain and saber domain, have all returned. The other 5 people looked solemn. Jiang Taishu looked at the sacred boundary, in the direction of the sacred prison, and smiled casually. The imprisonment of the sacred prison has allowed their minds to be as clear as water, and they have improved greatly. This world will never lack monsters and geniuses. What we lack are those who can rise up after falling to the bottom and challenge fate. Jiang Taishu's eyes shone with sacred light. They are now at the moment when they have surpassed the 9 revolution saint and are genuine half-step saint kings. Cultivation, training, accumulation, reincarnation, they have all taken place. They only lack a battle. It's only a matter of time before they become saint kings. Time is up. Everyone, let's go. 4 days later, in a special plane in the Ice Heart Palace, Lin Shun rubbed his chin and stared at Lin Pingon, who was hugging the core of darkness disaster and turning into a black cocoon of light, and fell into deep thought. This girl had been in a deep sleep for almost a year. Previously, he had given it to Lin Pingon after confirming that it would not harm her. This girl is getting more and more addicted to absorbing energy. She's not moving at all. However, Lin Shin was not worried for the time being. She did not look dangerous or uncomfortable. Even if this girl really turned into a disaster, with Zi Qianzhou's array, she would not be able to endanger the people around her for a while. At this moment, the heavenly cycle seal of life and death in his mind shone brightly. Lin Chen smiled. Looks like they're almost done. Whoosh! In the Ice Heart Palace, flashes of sacred light descended, and all the servants gathered together. Fei Qinyu, who was chatting happily with her sister just a moment ago, was stunned in the next moment. Although she had heard about it, she was still shocked by this lineup. Lin Chen's servants had all returned. Everyone's cultivation was so strong that it made people tremble. The one with the lowest cultivation was not inferior to her at all. He was also a 7th Revolution saint. Altogether, there were a total of 61 people. Including Fei Wushuang, there were 62 people. There were 17 people in the 19th level of the sacred prison, 41 people in the 18th level, and 4 people in the 17th level. It looks like you have made sufficient preparations. Lin Chen smiled and walked into the Ice Heart Palace's main hall. Greetings, master. The 62 servants bowed and cupped their fists. Their words were filled with gratitude and determination. Lin Chen sat in the main hall and nodded in satisfaction. You are very efficient. You are 1 month faster than I expected. In less than 2.5 months, you have completed all your tasks. Everything is ready to go to the Divine Flame Palace. In 2.5 months, Jiang Taishu was in charge of deducing the secrets of heaven, locating enemies, finding experts, and providing support in major battles. Xiaoling, and Ziqianshou were in charge of teleporting each servant to their destination. In addition, Xiaoling, and Ji Wuchen used spatial magic and forbidden spells to seal off the enemy's escape route when they were erasing them. As for Lin Chen's 6 clones, they moved separately and followed the servants. With the help of the ultra space-time talent, they ensured that the enemies could not escape. They were also in charge of collecting heads and attributes. In these 2.5 months, even if Lin Chen did not participate in the main battles to kill enemies, his attribute points had accumulated to an unprecedented level. My attribute points have just exceeded the system update's standard line. Yes, I have picked up a huge amount of attribute points from the system update. More importantly, my top-notch essence has also accumulated to a whole new level. I'm not far from the next meridian condensation. Lin Chen once again felt how great it was to have a strong force as the support of his foundation. Of course, Lin Chen could not just collect heads for all battles. As long as it was a battle above 5th transformation, Lin Chen could not even join in with his clones. The reason was simple. Above 5th transformation, the level was much higher than before. 5th transformation was already at the top of the pyramid of the Sage realm. As long as it was a battle above 5th transformation, even if the clones did not fear death, they would not be able to assist. Instead, it was very likely that the clones would be destroyed and lose a large amount of rune energy. Not to mention that Fong Ling's enemies were all 9th transformation old monsters. Once the two sides fought, it would be a scene of heaven and earth collapsing and stars falling from the sky. Lin Chen's clones would be in danger if they even went close to watch the battle. In a battle above 5th transformation, Lin Chen could only collect the leftovers if he wanted to get attribute points. My lord, there might be one last step to go to Divine Flame Palace. At this moment, Blood Monarch Yin Tian Guang smiled wickedly. Lin Chen said, "What do you think is still missing?" Yin Tian Guang smiled. My lord still lacks cultivation methods. Chapter 1554. The Sage Monarch Region, the territory of a certain rank, 9 force. A vast and ethereal palace was hidden in the clouds. In front of the palace, in a white jade square, hundreds of people were kneeling on one knee. They were either at the perfected Sacred Heart Realm, the Heaven-Opening Realm, or even the First Revolution Saints. They were known as mighty figures in the various human regions, and their names were passed down through the ages. At this moment, these mighty figures were all kneeling and kowtowing. "Senior, please come out." This time, They came with ill intentions, intending to destroy the forces of the sacred boundary. Senior, please divine the heavenly secrets and return peace to our regions. This is a blatant provocation. How can the humans of the sacred boundary let this go? We should catch all these thieves. Senior, please give us a chance to fight. Our request is only to ask Senior to divine the heavens for us once. Senior, are you going to leave us in the lurch? Is this how the limitless palace treats our saints? Where is the righteousness? Where is the truth? These human race almighties were shouting in anger, trying to force the limitless palace's limitless old man to come out of his mountain. So noisy. Scram, scram, scram. Two childish snorts choked all the powerful human beings on the scene. Two beautiful little girls floated out from the palace, hugging a porcelain doll. They had cute little faces and wrinkled noses as they spoke in unison. You are not welcome here. Please crawl. The mighty figures were stunned for a moment before they were enraged. They were highly respected and had noble statuses. Why had they ever been scolded by two little girls like this? The little girl in the green dress narrowed her eyes. Looks like you want to fight. The little girl in the red dress smiled. I bet that you will lose first. Boom. A bright moon slowly rose behind the two girls. The saint aura suddenly increased, and all the mighty figures felt a suffocating saint aura suppressing them. Other than those at the late-stage heaven-opening realm and above, the rest turned pale. Qinshuang, Wan Yin, stop fooling around. The old man's sigh sounded. In the void, a white-haired old man slowly emerged from the transparent void like a ghost. He gently stroked his goatee and had the demeanor of a transcendent being. He held a horsetail whisk in his hand and had the clear mind mirror hanging on his waist. If Linshan were here, he would definitely recognize him. It was none other than the white-haired old man who had forced the dragon-devourer demon king and the other demons to retreat and seen through Lin Pingan's true identity as the calamity of pain. He lived in the sage monarch domain and was the patriarch of the Everlasting Palace, a 9th-ranked organization. Although he was a wild crane that lived in seclusion and did not pay attention to worldly affairs, he was publicly acknowledged as the #1 fortune teller in the sacred boundary. This time, a large number of Grade 8 sects and secluded Grade 8 sects have been annihilated in a short period of time. Many Grade 8 sects and secluded Grade 8 sects have been annihilated, causing a large number of Grade 8 sects to panic. No one knew if the other party would come looking for them. They would rather fight, but they couldn't find where the enemy was. This was the saddest thing. Therefore, they decided to ask the limitless old man to come out. Everyone, the limitless old man said calmly, this crisis is not within the great calamity and heavenly secrets that I have divined. I will not take action. Please go back. Don't. Senior Limitless, if you don't say anything, we will have to wait for death. Yes, without lips, the teeth will be cold. You can't do this. The limitless old man frowned slightly as the mighty figures of the human race did not give up. Just as he was about to send them off, buzz, a 9-colored light shot into the sky from the limitless palace. It seems to be the nimble chess game. The two girls exclaimed in surprise. The limitless old man said in surprise, the nimble chess game that I left in the Divine Pole Pavilion has been solved? Who is it? Who has such ability? Those 3 to 5 people back then have yet to break through. Could it be a new fortune teller in the world today? Then who exactly is it that has the ability to break this old man's nimble chess game? The limitless old man could not help but pinch his fingers as he divined, and his expression became more and more surprised. He could not deduce the person who solved the game. What did this mean? Could it be that the person who solved the game has already reached the realm of an old man? The limitless old man was moved. There have been so many things happening recently. There was the massacre of the powerful figures of the various major sects, and someone just had to solve my nimble chess game. Finally, the limitless old man took out a flag with a white dragon engraved on it. It shone brilliantly as he waved it toward the sky. Whoosh! The dragon's shadow filled the sky as the flag floated in the air. The mighty figures were shocked. Then, the limitless old man waved his horsetail whisk a few times, and the flag danced with layers of dragon shadow. The limitless old man stared deeply at the scene in the flag. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, the limitless old man laughed. My path is not lonely. I did not expect that he had already stepped into my realm back then. Yes, even if there is still a small gap between us, it is not far. The limitless old man looked at everyone and said calmly, "Everything you want to know will be gathered at the Divine Flame Palace's Divine God Investiture ceremony." After saying that, the limitless old man put away the flag and left with the two women. He muttered to himself, "Who exactly is it that can gather all the prides of this era? How strange, how strange. I have to make a trip to the Divine Flame Palace personally for the Divine God Investiture ceremony." The mighty figures remained where they were, shocked and confused. The Divine Flame Palace's Divine God Investiture ceremony? Inside the Ice Heart Palace, Lin Shun gave Yin Tingwang a thumbs up. "How handsome. Great minds think alike." Yu Wangsheng stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Ha! If my lord wants us to go and cause trouble, then we naturally won't lack anything." Jiang Taishu nodded in agreement. "Yes, that is indeed the case. If my lord wants to challenge the descendant of the martial god from the Divine Flame Palace one-on-one, his martial arts might be his only weakness." That's right. Lin Shin's cultivation technique was very powerful. He had shown the Tai Sky concealing technique to the servants, and even the servants were amazed by its power. However, his cultivation technique and battle skills were still insufficient. Facing the monstrous genius list, Lin Shun had many intermediate orange-grade battle skills and his orange-grade talent. It was more than enough to beat up the monstrous genius list. However, the Saint Talent list was not the monstrous genius list. If the monstrous genius list was a monster, then the Saint Talent list was a monster among monsters. Even Long Jioshan hesitated. If my lord and Wu Pianju were at the same realm, then we wouldn't even frown. We would just beat him up and be done with it. Fei Wushuang nodded with a worried expression. But my lord is only at the transformation realm. Wu Pianju is at the perfect Saint Heart realm. I heard that he wants to accumulate until he reaches the perfect advancement realm. As long as he wants to, he can step into the heaven-opening realm at any time. Only some people on the Saint Talent list could reach the perfect advancement realm. In the heaven-opening realm, one Saint point could increase one Saint power by more than 400 Saint power. However, for the Saint Talent list, it was far more than this number. According to the information collected by the servants, not counting the peerless talent of his martial god bloodline, Wu Pianju's Saint power had reached the heaven-opening realm. Wu Pianju's total acupoint expansion was 10,550 times, and total acupoint condensation was 2,120 times. This result was a proud result on the Saint Talent list. Chapter 1555. Acupoint expansion and acupoint condensation were definitely not the decisive factors to measure a Saint Talent combat power. There were all kinds of talents on the Saint Talent ranking, and there were many strange talents. Some Saint Talents could only expand their acupoints by 8,000 times, but when they really fought, they were not inferior to Saint Talents who had expanded their acupoints by 10,000 times. They might even be more powerful. Wu Pianju had been in the Saint Heart realm for 100 years, and he had been pursuing the perfect opportunity to break through. He even said that he wanted to compete with the Saint Talents on the Saint Talent ranking. Among the Saint Talent ranking, except for a few people, winning or losing meant life and death. Until the moment of death, no one knew who was stronger or weaker on the Saint Talent ranking. This was also the reason why other Saint Talents were not ranked other than the top 10. Wu Pianju had been in the Saint Heart realm for 100 years, but this did not mean that he would stagnate. Some time ago, the Divine Flame Palace had announced that Wu Pianju had completed his self-created orange-level advanced technique. Lin Shin had not cultivated an orange-level advanced technique until now. Wu Pianju had already created one. This was the huge gap between them. With his foundation, it was not surprising that he had a few more orange-level advanced techniques, and this was not even considering that he had other hidden cards. If Lin Chun fought him one-on-one, once they fought, the outcome was still unknown. Lin Chun smiled playfully. This time is different from the past. In the past, the descendants of false gods I fought were weak. This time, they are real descendants of gods. Lin Chun rubbed his chin and smiled evilly. The stronger the existence, the harder it is to reproduce. I heard that Wu Pianju is the first direct descendant of the martial god, the son of the martial god. He is very powerful. I wonder what attributes he will drop if I beat him up. With our preparations, we can only find 2 orange-level advanced techniques for the Lord, and we only got them after we killed those enemies. Jiang Taishu opened his palm, and a broken ancient book and a jade scroll appeared in the holy light, sealing a strong spiritual fluctuation. Orange-level advanced techniques were rare, and only 9th-rank forces and a few 8th-rank forces had them. Lin Chun raised his hand to stop Jiang Taishu and smiled meaningfully. No, I won't use these 2 scrolls for the time being. Everyone was stunned. Could it be that the Lord has a better cultivation method? Lin Chun smirked and said, "If it's a cultivation method, don't you guys have a better cultivation method?" That's right. Everyone here was the best teacher. This was especially true for the servants on the 19th floor. Every single one of them was a top authority in their respective fields. In terms of sword Dao, Fong Ling was unparalleled. In terms of saber Dao, Lang Fanyun was invincible under the Saint Ruler realm in the Saber region. Just the 2 of them alone would have a lot to learn. All the servants were confused. Indeed, they had cultivated a high-grade orange-tier cultivation method. However, cultivating it himself and letting the Lord cultivate it were 2 completely different things. It was just like how a single-player king was handsome and Lin Chun was handsome. They were 2 completely different concepts. My lord, do you mean that you want to learn our cultivation methods? Jiang Taishu was bewildered. Fong Ling asked curiously, but we can't record it in such a short time. That's right. Most of the servants here had more or less cultivated orange-tier advanced cultivation techniques. Even the 4 brothers on the 17th floor of the 4-way realm C had mastered an orange-tier advanced killing technique. However, this was something that was engraved in their minds. They couldn't pass it on to Lin Chun in one go. Even with the amount of spiritual light in their minds, if they wanted to record the cultivation methods they had cultivated, it would take them hundreds of years. The complexity of an orange-tier advanced cultivation technique was not something a purple-tier advanced cultivation technique could compare to. It wasn't something that could be passed on easily. Who said I want you to record it? Lin Chun stood up and said with a smile, "Since I have to learn it, I'll start with you, Wu Shuang." Fei Wu Shuang. Start with me? What kind of strategy was the Lord trying to pull? Lin Chun patted her shoulder and smiled wickedly. Come, sit down. I'll move on my own later. Fei Qinyu. What was he planning to do to her sister? All the big shots were still here. Couldn't he at least find a room to turn off the lights, light a couple of candles, and sing a love song to flirt with her? Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't understand. What was the Lord thinking? Fei Wushuang's face turned red. Lord, this isn't good. It's fine, it's fine. I'll be very gentle. Although it's my first time, I'm very familiar with it. Lin Chun said seriously, the first time is always tense. Don't worry. I promise I won't make you feel uncomfortable. After saying that, Fei Wushuang actually closed her eyes and opened her mind. All the servants held their breaths. They didn't see what Lin Chun was doing. Fei Qinyu's mouth was slightly agape. If it wasn't for the fact that Lin Chun had saved her sister, she would have already attacked him. Lin Chun also closed his eyes. Between his eyebrows, a torrential wave of spiritual energy erupted. Boom! His spiritual energy immediately enveloped Fei Wushuang. Then, Lin Chun saw Fei Wushuang's spiritual imprint in the dozens of cycle heaven death seals in his spiritual sea. He exerted his spiritual energy and immediately drilled into Fei Wushuang's life and death seal. The external spiritual energy directly poured into Fei Wushuang's forehead. And Fei Wushuang closed her eyes and raised her head. She couldn't help but let out a delicate moan. However, which of the servants present wasn't experienced and knowledgeable? They didn't care about Fei Wushuang's reaction. All the servants' attention was on Lin Chun. At this moment, Lin Chen's spiritual energy entered a world filled with twinkling star veins. Within each star vein, he could clearly see all of Fei Wushuang's memories, including her cultivation memories. Seeing all of Fei Wushuang's cultivation memories was something that only Lin Chun, who had used the Cycle Heaven Death Seal, could do. As long as his servants opened their minds and defenses, he would be able to see their cultivation memories. Under normal circumstances, seeing cultivation memories wouldn't be of much use. At most, it would be able to uncover some other secrets. However, the person who cultivated the heavenly cycle seal of life and death was Lin Chun. System, can you help me integrate these cultivation memories? Lin Chun asked directly. System replies, no problem, but you will need to double the consumption of the original basic cultivation technique essence. The moment he heard this reply, the corners of Lin Chen's mouth curled up crazily. What did the system's reply mean? Presumably, it knew what was going on. Wu Pianju, a Wu Pianju. This time, I want to see how awesome you can be. That's right. As long as Lin Chun had enough cultivation technique essence, and his spiritual realm could support a large amount of spiritual memories, in theory, Lin Chun could use the Cycle Heaven Death Seal and the system's cultivation technique learning function to learn all of the servants' moves. At this moment, all of the servants had become teachers. If they wanted to learn, they would learn the most awesome, strongest, and most professional ones. Chapter 1556. Wushuang is still a virgin? Lin Chun was a little surprised and took a look at Fei Wushuang's memories. Fei Wushuang had cultivated for dozens of eras, but he didn't expect her to be a virgin. However, it was obvious after thinking about it. A saint could cultivate for hundreds or thousands of years in seclusion. For someone at the peak of the sage realm, a period of 10,000 years was just a matter of seclusion. The time to do things and feel the world was not much for some cultivation maniacs. He combined his mental power and immediately chose one of Fei Wushuang's ultimate techniques to learn. This ultimate skill was a high-grade, orange-grade technique called Ambolite. In the past, Fei Wushuang, who was known as the Scarlet Dual Absolute, had one of her best techniques, which was Ambolite Flowing Light. Beginning to integrate Ambolite cultivation memories. 2,300,000 top-grade technique essence consumed. Because the host is using a special cultivation method, the consumption is doubled. Rumble. An unprecedented amount of memories poured into Lin Chen's mind. He immediately released all his clones and formed a circle. Everyone, don't move. Jiang Taishu narrowed his eyes and immediately asked everyone to step back to protect Lin Chun and Fei Wushuang. Damn, the amount of memories for an advanced orange-grade technique is terrifying. Lin Chun wiped off his cold sweat and hurriedly mobilized his clones to integrate the cultivation memories. Even his main body personally went to sit cross-legged in the void. The complexity of an advanced orange-grade technique was dozens of times higher than that of an intermediate orange-grade technique. Everyone protected him. Time passed. 4 days later, in a special realm of the Ice Heart Palace, 9-layer burning sky palm. Lin Chun slammed his palm on Long Jioshan's protective golden light. Blazing flames surged and destroyed the world. Boom! A terrifying explosion raged as Saint Power surged and turned into a storm. Long Jioshan's defense was as immovable as a mountain. Again, 5-colored clouds flowed around Lin Chen's body as he unleashed another 9-layer burning sky palm. Chi! Bang! The entire realm shook. This palm was 50% stronger than the previous one. Long Jioshan's defense was still immovable. However, all the saints in the plane, including Fei Qinyu and Fei Wushuang, were dumbfounded. It couldn't be wrong. It was Fei Wushuang's famous ultimate technique, effulgent flowing light. It can increase the power of cultivation methods below orange tier by 50%. It was exactly the same as Fei Wushuang's, perfect and flawless. No, I still don't believe it. Fei Qinyu suddenly felt that her brain wasn't enough to process all of this and shook her head. Ha, it's your turn now, Yun Tingguang. Lin Shen laughed loudly and pulled Blood Monarch Yun Tingguang to activate the system. 3 days later. Within the exquisite plain of the Ice Heart Palace, there was an exquisite array around it, making the space spacious and sturdy. Rip! Thousands of beams of blood-red light flashed through the void like shadows. They were fine when they were motionless, but when they moved, they were like 1,000 bolts of lightning that flashed in thousands of directions. Boom! For a moment, thousands of blood-red clouds danced wildly in the Linglong plain, turning into thousands of afterimages. Their speed was extremely fast. This was Yun Tingguang's famous ultimate technique, Cloud Shadow Heaven's Light, an orange tier ultimate movement technique. This movement technique was unpredictable, making it impossible to lock onto the real body. Regardless of whether it was a burst of speed or continuous high-speed movement, there were different tricks. Whoosh! Body movement techniques were extremely rare. One had to know that even the Clear Sky Sacred King had only used the mid-orange tier 9 wings of the Heavenly Demon. When the thousands of cloud shadows merged into one, Lin Shen's handsome figure appeared in front of everyone once again. He laughed mockingly and said, "How is it? Other than the fact that it doesn't have your bloodline, it's not much different from what you used, right?" At this moment, Blood Monarch and Yun Tingguang, who were standing at the side, were dumbfounded. All the servants felt that their worldview had collapsed once again. In 7 days, he had cultivated 2 orange-tier advanced techniques to perfect mastery. And he didn't even have the original techniques? What kind of deity was this? Even the legendary Einerjar's bloodline wasn't that powerful. All the servants were in awe. An orange-tier advanced technique wasn't easy for someone as powerful as a descendant of a god to cultivate. To be able to learn it within a year was already a very fast cultivation speed. But what the hell was this about cultivating it to perfect mastery? And he didn't even have the original techniques or anyone to guide him. Fei Wushuang said, "My lord is so powerful." Fei Qinyu said, "There's such a thing?" Gue Jianqiu said, "I'm impressed." Zi Qianqiu said, "My lord is a god forever." Long Jiushan said, "What kind of Einherjar's bloodline is this?" Ha. It's nothing in front of my lord. Fong Ling said, "Looking at the Einherjar's bloodline is just for fun. If you really want to look at the techniques, you have to look at our lord." Lin Shun, ha. Lang Fanyan said, "I'm looking forward to Wu Pianju's expression now." Qi Fian said, "Exciting, too exciting. If my lord learns all of our secret techniques, oh my god, I don't even dare to think about it. The scene is too beautiful. Ha. What kind of lord have we followed? This is too scary. Even novels don't dare to write like this." Now, everyone was in a daze. Which of the servants on the 19th floor wasn't a proud son of a generation, a peerless genius? The 17 of them had absolute authority and power in their respective fields. Movement techniques, defense, physique refining, attack, sword techniques, saber techniques, assassination techniques, forbidden techniques, formations, and so on. If Lin Chun could master all of their secret techniques, what kind of existence would he be? The scene was too beautiful to imagine. He would definitely become the most powerful transformation state cultivator in the history of the sacred boundary. The servants' eyes were filled with unprecedented excitement. They had a feeling that their lord would become an unparalleled saint state cultivator in the history of the sacred boundary. However, Lin Chun had thought about it. His techniques were limited, and the consumption of high-grade orange-level techniques was terrifying. Secondly, his spiritual sea had a limited capacity. His spiritual sea, which already had many servants' heavenly cycle seal of life and death, would not be able to withstand the sea of cultivation memories. Therefore, Lin Shen's current limit was that he could only learn one secret technique from 5 people at most. Any more, and he would not be able to take it. Lin Shen had to choose their core techniques to learn. Lin Shen suddenly turned around, his eyes shining brightly. Fong Ling, it's your turn. Ha ha! Fong Ling laughed, and the world shook. His aura was majestic and majestic. My lord, my sword techniques can pierce the heavens and the 9 heavens and the endless hell. This is very difficult. My lord, you have to be mentally prepared. Lin Chen laughed. Bring it on. Time passed, and another month passed. On the first level of the sacred prison, many of the prison guards were uneasy. Damn it, a bunch of good-for-nothings. The golden armored man slammed his palm down, killing 2 life and death realm prison guards. It's been more than 2 years, and you can't even find a trace? Did you eat sh*t or play Tanwan, seizing the moon? The golden armored man was flustered and exasperated. He grabbed a Sacred Heart prison overlord, his expression sinister and dark as he spoke. Damn it, why? I've already given you the authority of the sacred prison, and you can't even find out anything? The Sacred Heart prison overlord trembled as he begged for mercy. My lord, this really has nothing to do with us. We've already tried our best. The sacred boundary is vast, and you know it well. If they wanted to hide, they might have left the sacred boundary. The 36 regions of the sacred boundary were too vast. Even the sacred prison, which had searched for 2 years, could not easily find the ultimate powerhouses of the past. Just the experience of those powerhouses left the prison guards far behind. It was too difficult to play hide and seek with them. Chapter 1557. The golden armored man was furious, and his eyes flashed. Leave the sacred boundary? No, they don't have that ability. Dragging their broken bodies, they don't even have 1,000th of their peak strength. Where can they go? At this time, another Nostar realm prison guard said in a trembling voice, That, sir, we haven't fully displayed the prestige of the sacred prison. Why don't we publicize the fact and collect clues about those people on the 19th level from the major sects? Boom! Bang! Before he could finish, the golden armored man slapped him heavily, causing him to vomit blood. Publicize? If we have to publicize to find this kid and those people, then what face does the sacred prison have? Mother asterisk her, if your wife was F asterisk head and kidnapped, would you publicize it? He was so angry that he laughed. How can you ask such a stupid question? How did you cultivate to the Nostar realm? Take him away and chop him up. Another Nostar realm prison guard died in the sacred prison. Listen up, the lords who followed the great true God to the deepest part of the divine river galaxy will be back in 10 years at most. If you don't bring back any information during this time, all of us here will die. The golden armored man said very seriously. We must not let the outside world know that something has happened to the sacred prison. Search for that kid's characteristics, and those people on the 19th and 18th levels must be done by the people of the sacred prison. The prison guards present were silent. Wasn't this forcing them to die? They obviously didn't have enough manpower. If they could publicize the information and characteristics of those people on the 19th level and collect clues from the major sects, they might have already found something. However, this would undoubtedly announce to the outside world that someone had broken out of the sacred prison and escaped. That would be a slap in the face. Boom! At this time, a supreme saint power descended from the void, and a golden path was formed from the 9 heavens, extending straight to the sky of the sacred prison. At this moment, even the golden armored man's expression changed in horror. How did they come back so quickly? Within the Golden Avenue, hundreds of figures flashing with golden light appeared. The scene was majestic and magnificent. The 3 handsome men in the lead were like the sun in the sky, eternally unsetting, as if the sun would never die even if the heavens and earth were to decay. There were actually 3 Saint Kings. One Saint King was already a legend in every era. When three saint kings appeared together, it was as if all the chi in the world was gathering towards them. The world revolved around them, and the sun and moon revolved around them. Behind the three sacred kings, rank 9 and rank 8 sacred kings formed groups. The golden road spread out between heaven and earth, all the way to the holy prison. The main force of the holy prison had all returned. At a rough glance, there were at least 400 people. The three great saint kings stood tall and dignified, on par with heaven and earth. But at this moment, there was a trace of deep fear and lingering fear in the eyes of the three great saint kings. To be able to make even a saint king feel fear, what exactly was... The three great saint kings looked at each other and communicated telepathically. As expected of a great, true God, he can tear apart a galaxy with a snap of his fingers, causing space-time to come to a sudden halt. Every move he makes can annihilate all things. The divine emperor's relic. The gods have taken action. Just the outer perimeter of the divine emperor's relic is enough to cause the universe to collapse and the stars to collapse. We don't even have the qualifications to watch the battle up close. The fate of the God Emperor has nothing to do with us. The gods have taken action. They have no time to care about the sacred boundary. This battle might last for 1,000 years or even longer. We are not the only ones who know this information. The various rank 9 forces and the Saint Talent list must have some information. The sacred boundary is going to completely change. The Azura race has already invaded the god realm of the four-dimensional universe. They will not return. The insect race has been destroyed. The key is the devil race, the dragon race, the beast race, the demon race, and the dark shadow race who are hiding in the dark. The gods are missing. Where's the future of the sacred boundary? If a strong enemy attacks, we will be like a group of dragons without a leader. While the three great saint kings were conversing, the vast gates of the holy prison slowly opened, welcoming the return of the experts. "Welcome back, my lords." The golden-armored man shouted respectfully and knelt on one knee. The three great saint kings in the lead nodded. Even if they had thousands of schemes in their hearts, they would not let outsiders see it. What the saint kings said casually. "How is the situation in the holy prison? Is it all right?" The people kneeling on the ground to welcome him immediately trembled, and no one dared to say a word. Seeing the abnormality of the crowd, the three great saint kings immediately sensed that something was wrong. Replying to the three venerables, the golden-armored man braced himself and reported the recent events truthfully. What? Someone broke into the holy prison? Or a human disguised as a demon? And killed a clone of the demon emperor's will? Damn it. Why is it getting more and more ridiculous? Are you reading a novel here? He can unlock the 9-killer seal? He even took away all the remaining fellows on the 19th and 18th level. The next day, in the holy prison, although the golden-armored man was terrified, he was relieved. The three great saint kings did not punish all the prison guards. They had actually forgiven them. In fact, it was not that they had forgiven them. It was just that the holy prison needed people now. If these prison guards were killed on a large scale, the current situation would not change. It was better to leave them alive to do something practical. In a secret chamber on the first level of the holy prison, the three great saint kings sat here, discussing the matter of finding the escapees. Now that things have come to this, the sacred boundary will change greatly, and the holy prison is in trouble. We can only use the holy prison's name to recruit people. With our foundation, it is easy for us to gather strength. Let's announce the situation. Compared to face, finding the 17 people on the 19th level is more important. The three saint kings reached an agreement. Why did the three great saint kings place so much importance on the 19th level? In theory, there was a huge gap between a 9th Revolution saint and a saint king. However, there were also 9th Revolution experts on the 18th level, such as Guei Jianshou and the others. However, there was a huge gap between them, and the people on the 19th level to become a ninth revolution saint. Most of them were either the top 500 on the monster genius list or had heaven-defying luck. They had supreme, fortuitous opportunities and countless tempering. Experts of this level had extremely strong foundations. Ordinary methods and other factors could no longer affect the gap between experts of this level. What was the real gap? It was divine fate. For example, Zi Qinzhou's 12 Dao Palace formation, Ji Wuchen's forbidden technique, the spatial divine arts flowing in Shaolin, Er's bloodline, and so on. They were all people with divine fate, the foundation of a true god from the antiquity era. This was also the core reason why they could become the pride of their era back then. Talent and cultivation were not the main reasons. Having divine fate was the most important point. They were the group of people most likely to become saint kings. They were also the group of people who posed the greatest threat after becoming saint kings. The three great saint kings' eyes were especially deep. The saint's world will be in an era of chaos. Chapter 1558. No matter which true god wins, the leaderless sacred boundary will welcome them. At the same time, we can gather those old monsters and the rank 8 sect for our use. Just as the three kings were deciding, the prison master's voice came from outside the secret chamber. Three venerables. There is an elder outside who wishes to see you. He calls himself Tua Sheng. Hearing this, the three kings immediately stood up with serious expressions. Tua Sheng? Could it be the Tua Sheng from the desolate era? Isn't he dead? No. Tua Sheng's body has been taken over by a living being he personally raised. Innate shadow? The three sacred kings walked out of the sacred prison. In the air, Tua Sheng, who was holding a walking stick, looked at the three sacred kings with a smile. Greetings, Saint Kings. Perhaps we can talk about a deal. What deal? A deal about a jailbreak from a sacred prison. The three sacred kings' eyes instantly became very sharp. Southern region, sacred burial mountain range. Bang! With a loud sound, the ancient bronze coffin was opened. Clear skies, sacred king stepped on a holy light that was as bright as the sun in the sky. His eyebrows were like swords, and when he looked down at the sacred burial mountain range, he was filled with a murderous aura. It's been 100 eras, and I'm finally out. Lin Xingqian. I will definitely kill you two little bastards as a sacrifice to my damaged sage king physique. Two figures wearing cloaks walked out of the darkness and smiled faintly. Clear sky. I hope you don't forget your promise to the demon race. Your saintly body is always incomplete. Joining the demon tribe is the right path for you. We have already prepared the most suitable demon body for you, and we welcome you at any time. Clear sky, sacred king nodded with a ferocious expression. Before that, I will make these two little bastards pay the price. Let's go and meet up with Een, son of heaven. Ice Heart Palace. The little demon empress was bored as she sat in the main hall of Ice Heart Palace. Her jade-like fingers played with a 6th grade saint pill, and her enchanting figure was fully displayed when she stretched her waist. She was as beautiful as a fairy. It's so boring. Lin Shen hasn't done anything for a month. When will we reach the God Flame Palace storyline? Jian Qingsheng rolled his eyes at her. Why are you in such a hurry? It's not like we're entering the bridal chamber. Beside him, Fairy Crimson covered her mouth and giggled. The climax of a battle is like the peak of sexual intercourse. The longer you prepare for the foreplay, the more enjoyable it will be. The little demon empress' eyes shone as she said excitedly, Really? Then wouldn't the plot of the Divine Flame Palace be so awesome? Bai Qianqian stuck out her tongue. Big sis Scarlet, your analogy is so magical. Lung Yueqi facepalmed. These two women were simply the same as him. No wonder they were attracted to each other. Ning Qingxian smiled, but didn't say anything. It was as if she would always be as calm as a lotus, quiet and elegant. Fairy Crimson looked into the distance and suddenly smiled. I'm afraid that after this battle, the sacred boundary will directly change rumble. A gust of wind suddenly swept up in the main hall. A group of figures appeared at the same time, and all kinds of holy power phenomena appeared in the void. There was wind, rain, thunder, lightning, and the azure dragon True Ho. The young man in the lead was like a moon surrounded by stars. All the women were delighted. It was Lin Chun. Had he finally come out of seclusion? Compared to a month ago, Lin Chen's temperament had undergone a huge change. He was both evil and righteous. If he wore a white robe and a crown, he would be like a floating immortal, handsome and spirited. If he wore a golden dragon robe, he would be like a monarch looking down on the world, domineering like a dragon. If he wore a black robe and a blade, he would be like an evil young master, looking at him for 10,000 years. This was a change brought about by learning the various cultivation techniques of the servants. The biggest difference between a saint and a mortal was the temperament that was nurtured by holy power. How is it? Are we going to go and cause trouble? The little demon empress was the first to jump in front of Lin Chun, and she said excitedly, "Are you okay?" Ning Qing Xian and Lung Yueqi asked in concern at the same time. Lin Chen's brows showed a hint of fatigue. Lin Chen smiled and said, "I'm fine." "How long until the divine seal ceremony?" Fairy Crimson smiled and said, "Less than half a month left. If we include the time we need to rush over, we have about 7 days of leisure left. Moreover, the welcoming ceremony has already begun. So far, I'm afraid that many forces have already started to go or arrive at the Divine Flame Palace." "Master, are we going to be famous all over the world?" Bai Qianqian asked expectantly. "Then, am I going to become the most handsome, auspicious beast in the sacred boundary?" Everyone laughed. Lin Chun stroked her hair and said with a smile, "You're very self-aware." Then, Lin Chun continued, "Iceheart Palace's main base and disciples will first move according to the location indicated by Taishu. Once the battle is over, they will definitely line up at our place. When that time comes, we'll make them miss." The corners of his mouth rose crazily. "Then, we'll rest for 3 days and set off for the Divine Flame Palace." Night, Iceheart Palace. Next to the snow jade tree, Lin Chun was peacefully leaning on the beauty's lap. Lung Yueqi quietly stared at him, not disturbing him. With a thought, Lin Chun opened the system. "System, I want to update." Activation of the update key. Heavenly Path Attribute Gathering System version 8.0 will be updated. Update cost: 100 million high-grade Heavenly Path points, 50 million top-grade Soul Essence points, 500,000 mid-grade Strengthening points, and 5 billion Set Essence points. All have been deducted. System update: 1%. During the update, the host can use all functions. A day ago, Lin Chun had finally gathered all the attribute points needed for the update. He had also left some for himself as a backup plan, if not for the fact that his clone had followed the servants to seek vengeance, and that manager Ing had been searching for and purchasing Sage-tier artifact for him. He would have had to spend an eternity to accumulate the massive amount of Heaven's Path points, top-notch cultivation technique essences, and set essences. When Lin Chun opened his eyes, there was a faint holy light surging. Wu Pianju expanded his acupoints by 10,550 times and condensed his acupoints by 2120 times. When he was at the Perfection Transformation Realm, he could unleash 1119 trillion dragon power. If I was only at the Perfection Expansion Realm, even if he was at the Perfection Transformation Realm, I would only be defeated by him. Lin Chun was no stranger to cross-realm challenges, but it was very difficult to cross several realms to challenge the Saint Talent list. Even if he doesn't have the martial god's bloodline, just the expansion and condensing of his acupoints means that he can unleash 40,000 venerable force with his Perfection Saint Heart. He can shatter space-time with a finger. If he uses a high-grade cultivation technique, the power is unimaginable. The corner of Lin Chen's mouth rose. This battle is really exciting. Let's see whose trump card is stronger. Lin Chen stood up and held the cold fairy's hand. He smiled and said, "Sister Yueqi, are you afraid?" The beauty's smile was so beautiful that the world lost its color. Even if it's a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, I'm willing to be with you until the end. My lord, please have a bath. At this time, two beautiful women appeared in the air with an ice heart bath in their hands. The two women had the aura of a secluded valley, like princesses of a neighboring country. A single glance could cause the downfall of a city. They were the two servants from the 18th level, the twin sisters Tang Haiyue and Tang Feishue from the Heaven Domain. Chapter 1559. Go ahead. I'll wait for you in the main hall. Lung Yueqi smiled sweetly. Lin Shun snapped his fingers and walked to the side of the jade pond. Tang Haiyue and Tang Feishue undressed him and washed his body. The water was the primordial soul, cleansing water of the Tianyuan galaxy. A servant on the 18th floor had personally searched for it for Lin Shun. The primordial soul, cleansing water was as soft as ice water. It was cool when it brushed against the skin. When the energy flowed into Lin Chen's body, there was a trace of warmth. It seeped into Lin Chen's mind and washed away all of Lin Chen's mental fatigue. In addition, Haiyue and Feishue's sea heart curse cleared away all the fatigue of Lin Chen's sacred body. After washing, Lin Shun came out of the bath. The two sisters glanced at each other. After a while, they covered their mouths and chuckled. Their cheeks were blushing. Lin Shin smiled playfully. I don't use my gun easily. Tang Haiyue smiled. Sister Yueqi, you're so lucky. Tang Feishue smiled mischievously. If there's still time, I'd also like to hear the story of my lord and Miss Yueqi. Lin Shin smiled. My story is not as exciting as yours. Tang Haiyue looked at him coquettishly. It's not like your story will be more exciting when you're older. The things that we sisters have done for thousands of years can't compare to one of her legendary deeds. Lin Shin was a little shy. He coughed and said, Ahem, I'm a shy person. I can't stand your compliments. Why don't you compliment me for a while more? The two girls chuckled. Then Tang Haiyue waved her hand. A brand new silver battle robe floated from the void. The robe was inlaid with faint silver dragon scales, shining brightly. There was an extraterrestrial star stone around the waist. The starlight was dazzling. The left and right sides of the robe were embroidered with silver patterns. The two women gently helped Lin Chun put on his battle robe. Tang Haiyue smiled. My lord, this star-chasing heavenly morning robe was personally made for you by Master Jin Wuxia. It is an 8th grade sacred artifact. The material was chosen by Miss Ning Qingxian, and the style was selected by Miss Lung Yueqi. The text on the robe was embroidered by Miss Yi Qingwu. Does it fit, my lord? Yes, it does fit very well, Lin Chun said with a smile. Tang Feishue smiled slyly and said, That's right. Miss Yi Qingwu told everyone that the lord always acts in a low-key manner, so this dress suits you the most. After saying that, Lin Chen's spiritual perception saw the embroidered words on the back of the robe. The most handsome in the heavens, the only me, Lin Chun. He almost laughed out loud. This little vixen calls this low-key. Lin Mao immediately smiled knowingly. However, he's very sensible, very sensible. I like this kind of low profile, too low profile. It only highlights my only advantage. The two women looked at each other and smiled. Their lord was really interesting. Lin Chun snapped his fingers and smiled. Let's go. Don't let everyone wait too long. Today, all the disciples of Ice Heart Palace had already moved. Inside the main hall of Ice Heart Palace, Lin Chun was wearing a brand new star-chasing heavenly morning robe. When he walked into the hall, everyone had been waiting for him for a long time. Wow, Master is so handsome. Bai Qianqian held her small face with both hands, her beautiful eyes blooming with stars. Ning Qingxian and Lung Yueqi looked at each other and smiled. Fairy Scarlet and the little demon empress gave each other a high five. Fairy Scarlet smiled and said, Yes, he is indeed very handsome. This is the most handsome I've ever been. Yi Qingwu skillfully put on the sunglasses Lin Chen gave her and smiled enchantingly. As expected, this young lady's eyes were right. If you want to fight a ninth grade force, you have to have this kind of extravagance. Jian Qingqing's beautiful eyes flashed. She was envious of the goddess of divine flame palace. As for the servants, they had already put on the human skin masks condensed from the illusory glass soul and disguised themselves into various appearances. Men, women, old, and young all had different physiques. Coupled with the Destruction Gemini's concealment technique, it was perfect. Even a Saint King might not be able to see through everyone's identities. Lin Shen looked around and noticed that there were fewer people. He asked in confusion, "Where did Fang Ling, Lang Fanyun, and Tian Hui go?" Jiang Taishu stroked his beard and smiled. "Ha ha ha, my lord, the two of them went ahead. They said that they want to give you a grand opening ceremony when you appear on the stage, my lord." Lin Shen couldn't help but laugh. "What's with all the fanciness?" Soon after, he said in a serious tone, "Please increase the intensity." Qi Fian laughed boldly. "They all know, haha." Lin Shen looked at Xiao Ling. "Linger, how is Ping? Her aura is getting stronger, but it's not time for her to come out. It's just that." Xiao Ling said worriedly, "My lord helped her gather her spirit and control her cultivation, but now she's even stronger than when she was in the holy prison. If she goes berserk, we might not be able to stop her with our ability." "She won't go berserk. I believe in her. Even if something were to happen to her, it would still be her choice. I respect her choice, and I won't give up on her." Then Xiao Linger bowed. "All right, Linger understands. I'll set up a spatial secret technique. Unless a Saint King comes, Ping An's seclusion will be absolutely safe." Lin Shen couldn't help but shake his head and laugh when he thought of this girl's pitiful face when she was afraid that she couldn't help him and wanted to absorb the core of darkness disaster. "All right, I'll also leave a spiritual clone. If there's any problem, I can transfer this girl away." Lin Shen smiled and nodded, then turned to look at the crowd. Compared to back then, when he was alone, the current him had gathered the strongest team in the sacred boundary. Under the calm expressions of all the servants, a fighting spirit burned quietly. Lin Shen's fighting spirit had long been brewed to the extreme. Looking around at everyone, Lin Shen said in a clear voice, "All of you have been bullied by the power of the holy purgatory, abandoned by the times, and suppressed by hegemony. I know that all of you have staked everything on me. We are all looking forward to the answer that the times will give us." Suddenly, Lin Shen let out a thunderous roar. "Then we only have one thing left. Fight! In this battle, we have to fight with our momentum and courage. We have to let the Saint Monarch domain know, let the sacred boundary know who is the one that cannot be provoked." The servants suddenly let out a thunderous roar. "Our lives are all in the hands of the Lord. Life and death are nothing. If you're not convinced, then fight." Rumble. Bang. The power of anger was like a sword, and Saint power surged, tearing the sky apart. The sky above the entire mystic realm instantly exploded and burst open. At this moment, countless python-like cracks appeared in the sky above the mystic realm. It was as if the sky was splitting open, and space and time were bursting open. Countless human powerhouses and reclusive old monsters were alarmed, and they looked in the direction of the Ice Heart Palace with a shocked expression. Even the ninth grade force in the mystic realm, the Outer Mystic Island, was alarmed. The island master of the Outer Mystic Island suddenly came out of seclusion and crossed thousands of miles of the void. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the void, but in the end, he could only see nothingness and nothing. How many peerless powerhouses were there to be able to shake the entire mystic realm with just their aura? Inside the Ice Heart Palace, the corners of Lin Chen's mouth curled up, and with a wave of his hand, he was overflowing with arrogance. "Let's go and see the scenery of the Saint Monarch domain. Let's go and challenge the Divine Flame Palace." Chapter 1560. 3 days later. Holy Monarch Domain, Divine Flame Palace. In the main hall of Brahma Mountain, a grand banquet was set up. Thousands of sects presented their gifts. Today was the Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture Ceremony. What was the Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture Ceremony? It was the ceremony where the Palace Master of Divine Flame Palace was born. The Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture Ceremony would confer the title of the next Palace Master. Today, they welcomed the Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture Ceremony. First, there was competition. Second, only a small number of people knew about the battle invitation. Today, Divine Flame Palace might welcome its first challenger, or it might just be a bluff. In the past, the Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture Ceremony was directly passed down by the Palace Master to the next successor. However, when there was a dispute over the successor, it had to go through the Council of Elders. If the Council of Elders voted for the other side, then the power would be equal to the current Palace Master of Divine Flame Palace. The Palace Master of Divine Flame Palace recommended by Royan. The Council of Elders recommended Wu Pianju. When such a situation occurred, there were only two methods left. One was contribution, and the other was strength. In terms of contribution, Byron, who had the eternal sacred fire, had created or improved a large number of cultivation mystic realms for the palace's true disciples and elders. The benefits were endless. On the other hand, Wu Pianju had used her martial god talent to modify a large number of cultivation techniques in Divine Flame Palace, causing the power of Divine Flame Palace to skyrocket in a short period of time. It was close to its peak. Therefore, the two of them were equal in contribution. The only thing left was strength. However, it was obvious who was stronger. Byroyan and Wu Pianju were not on the same level. Their talent might not be bad, but their cultivation time was too short. There was no comparison at all. However, Byroyan insisted on fighting. This allowed the Palace Master of Divine Flame Palace to fight for the chance to challenge Wu Pianju in the Council of Elders and Grand Elders. Therefore, the first Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture Ceremony was held. In the Divine Flame Square in front of Brahma Mountain, the experts and super geniuses of all the top-rank 8 sects gathered. This was a real scene of the top. Those who could enter here and receive an invitation were all top figures of the sacred boundary. Those who were ranked lower than the top 2,000 on the Demon Genius list were not even qualified to enter here. All the important figures were gathered. The rank 9 sect Sky Bearing Pavilion, Sun Moon 1000 Beast Sect, and 10 Directions Universal Palace had sent their representatives to attend. The super geniuses present today were especially restrained and restrained. They could only sit in the corner of the main palace. In the past, in the outside world, which one of them wasn't treated like a main character? In the outside world, they could throw their weight around and be domineering. But in this place, which old senior wasn't a monstrous legend whose name shook the 4 seas. The Sage Monarch domain had no place for mediocre people. This was the peak of the sacred boundary. In the front row of the main hall, the representative of the Sky-Bearing Pavilion was Xing Jiuqian, the pavilion branch master who had just come out of seclusion. 2 maids served him and filled his wine cup. He held a cup of 1,000-year-old wine in his hand and smiled playfully. Hee, I wonder what kind of show will happen this time. On that day, the Divine Flame Palace's letter of challenge alerted the 9th-ranked sects in the Sage Monarch realm and the Heavenly Saint realm. Only the grade 9 forces and the 10 strongest grade 8 forces knew that there might be a good show today. I guess those people won't come. At this moment, a mocking laugh sounded. Xing Jiuqian looked to the other side and saw the Vice Palace Master of 10 Directions Universal Palace, Dongfang Wuying, full of disdain. Although he was thin and short, no one dared to underestimate him. His eyes were like an owl in the night sky as he smiled playfully at Xing Jiuqian. Anyone who has lived through that era knows that no one can see through the foundation of the Divine Flame Palace. Who knows if those old guys are still here? If those old guys are still here, who would dare to mess with the Divine Flame Palace? The young master of the Sun, Moon, 1000 Beast sect was sitting on the side. She was dressed in a white dress, and she had beautiful eyebrows and smooth skin. She looked elegant and dignified as she sat there. There were 2 beautiful azure antlers on her head, and they were as clear as crystal. She couldn't help but smile. It's hard to say. The arrow that day was earth-shattering. Among the 9 Revolution Saints, there are very few who can block that arrow. While the representatives of the 3 Rank 9 forces were talking, within the Divine Flame Palace, within a secret hall, a tall figure in snow-white clothes held a scripture in his hand, and he seemed carefree. The space between his brows was filled with absolute confidence of being in control of the situation. It was Wu Pianju. Whoosh! A beam of holy light traveled through the void. When it arrived, 2 elders in purple knelt on one knee. Divine Son, things seem to be a bit difficult. Shangguanju has protected the people of the Lawkeeper Hall. She seems to be accumulating strength. Recently, there are VIPs attacking, and the people of the Lawkeeper Hall are staying in the palace for a long time. We can't do anything. In this operation, I feel that she is at least at the 5th level. The 2 elders reported and immediately felt that things were tricky. The other group of forces from the Divine Flame Palace, on the contrary, allowed them to struggle at death's door. The strength of the people of the Lawkeeper Hall was not to be underestimated. If they wanted to support a new master of the Divine Flame Palace, they would be the biggest obstacle. Even if Wu Pianju had the support of the Chief Grand Elder, it was still very difficult to eliminate a force led by a Saint King. The Chief Grand Elder supported Wu Pianju, but it did not mean that he would fight for her. Those who had cultivated to the Saint King realm would not easily make a move unless it was the last moment. Especially the old monsters in the Saint King realm, they were in a semi-retired state. Hearing this, Wu Pianju put down the scripture in her hand and said indifferently, "It doesn't matter. The trend of the times will not stop because of one person. Recently, there are VIPs coming, so don't act rashly. If there is anything, wait until I become the palace master of the Divine Flame Palace." He showed a handsome but cold smile. It seems that Shangguanju seems to think that she still has a chance to turn the tables. Maybe it's because of the letter of challenge some time ago. Speaking of this, the 2 elders' eyes were solemn, and one of them suggested, "Divine Son, do you want to talk to the elders and increase the strength of the defense?" Wu Pianju suddenly frowned and said indifferently, "Are you telling me what to do?" The purple-clothed elder trembled and broke out in a cold sweat. She immediately knelt down and said, "No, I don't dare. I'm just giving a small suggestion." "Get up." Wu Pianju smiled confidently. Today, there are 3 representatives of 9th grade sects and 9 representatives of the Saint Talent list here. There are more than 100 super 8th grade sects and thousands of monstrous geniuses. There is also a venerable protector on my side. The elders of the Divine Flame Palace will also be here. Do you think there will be a mistake? The person who sent the letter of challenge won't even have the guts to come. The 2 elders looked at each other and continued. Then, what if Shangguanju, that old woman, doesn't play tricks on Bairuoyan? Wu Pianju seemed to have heard a joke and said indifferently, "In terms of foundation, do you think Shangguanju is comparable to my father? Indeed, Bairuoyan has the eternal sacred fire that even my father can't control. With her potential, if she is given some time, there's indeed a small possibility that she will catch up to me and have the qualifications to enter the Saint Talent list in the future. But now, at most, she has the battle strength to surpass the monstrous genius list. She is still a bit lacking if she wants to be my enemy." Wu Pianju opened the successor token of the Divine Flame Palace in his palm and sneered. He exerted force in his palm and crushed it with a bang. The current Bairuoyan is not qualified to be my opponent. Seeing the deity son's confidence, the 2 elders felt that they were on the 2nd floor and the deity son was at least on the 5th floor. The purple-clothed elder joked, "Yes, Bairuoyan can at most be the deity son's concubine. She is barely qualified to compete for the position of Divine Flame Palace Master. She is not ranked." Wu Pianju said, "I am not interested in being a concubine. I'm tired of playing with women long ago." His expression showed intoxication and infatuation. In this world, there is nothing more interesting than controlling the entire era. I, Wu Pianju, can do what my father did back then. Pass down the order. In 2 days, the sacred fire will be lit and the ceremony will officially begin. After taking over the Divine Flame Palace, I will personally announce the next big plan. Yes. The two elders were about to leave when one of them suddenly said, Deity's son, there is one more thing. I want to report. Speak. It is said that the young man who has a relationship with by Ruoyan, Lin Shun of the Monstrous Genius list has appeared. Wu Pianju was interested. Oh, that kid who expanded his acupoints by 30,000 times? Yes, after being silent for 2 years. The first thing he did after returning was to challenge the entire Monstrous Genius list. Wu Pianju's calm eyes finally shone with a bit of spirit. Challenging the Monstrous Genius list? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.